I know that people are not born equal. In a park in the town of Mustatafu, Japan, a young 4-year-old boy with green hair and green eyes could be seen on a swing as he has a dejected look on his face. His name is Izuku Midoriya, a young boy who dreams of becoming a hero, yet doubt was planted into his mind. This is due to him being diagnosed as quirkless, a person who lacks superpowers which are called quirks, something many people desire, but he is in the 20% of the worldwide population that lacks these powers. Like someone like me, it would have been impossible to reach our dreams. Izuku then looked in the distance as he watched other kids his age showing off their quirks as they compare each other with smiles on their faces, with some even boasting their capabilities. But there is always someone there to give people hope. Felt something pushing him from behind, which surprised him as he began to swing back and forth slightly. "Hello." He heard a cheerful voice behind him as he looked to see someone standing there. I met mine on that day. Standing behind him with a bright smile on their face was a girl the same age as him, with short white hair and red eyes. Name: Frida. Frida Jaeger, she said in broken Japanese as she still smiles. Izuku Midoriya, he said to her as she gained a thoughtful look. Izuku. Izuku. Not here? He asked as she shook her head. Neen. Germany, she said to him. Germany? He asked as Frida nodded in excitement. Ja. And it brought back my spirit. Izuku, there you are. The two heard this, as they then looked to see someone walking towards them. It was a woman in her 40s with a curvy figure, chin-length, dark green hair with a fringe styled into a bob, and her eyes are light green. She wears a long white fur coat, a dark green form-fitting V-neck dress with a high collar, thigh-high black boots, and several white pearl necklaces. Fubuki Abakin, Izuku called out to her as the woman, then stood in front of the two children. I have been looking everywhere for you, she said before noticing Frida. And who is she? She's Frida and she's from Germany, he said. Fubuki raised an eyebrow. Germany? She said before looking at Frida and kneeling in front of her. Was Sind your Eltern? You know their language? Izuku asked in awe, with Frida looking at Fubuki the same. I do go around the world, so I need to at least learn, she explained to him. Shaking out her shock, Frida smiled again and she said, Ich besuch mein Paten. Ich have mein Tant mein Dabi. This made Fubuki raise an eyebrow and said, Wie ist denn dein Tant? And many more would come to help. Frida, the three of them heard this as they noticed a woman running towards them. She has very long, pink hair tied in a single long ponytail and pink eyes. She wears a pink outfit, consisting of a tied shawl, a high collar, a pink long-sleeve dress, and black stockings with pink shoes. Tant mine, Frida cheerfully said as she ran up to the pink-haired woman, who immediately caught and gave her a scolding look. Hab ich dir nicht gesagt, dass du nicht weglaufen sollst? She said to her as Frida points to Izuku. Ich sah, wieder junge Troergasse. Frida said to her, while pointing to her eyes. Trotzdem solltest du nicht weglaufen. Mine said to her before noticing both Izuku and Fubuki and said in Japanese, Sorry for bothering you. No. It's all right. My nephew's been having a bad day, so it's nice to see someone brighten up his day, Fubuki said to her. And many come to understand. How so? The pink-haired woman asked, which made Fubuki wince a bit. He's diagnosed as quirkless, she said, which also made mine wince. Sorry for asking. It's all right. We have always been there for him, and we still are now, Fubuki said as mine smiled from this. He's lucky to have a family like yours, she said, which made Fubuki smile. Tant mine, Frida called to mine as she looked to her goddaughter, who was gesturing to come closer. Mine did so, and Frida began to whisper something to her, and a look of intrigue appeared on mine's face before a smile appeared as well. Frida asked if she could hang out with your nephew. Mine said of Fubuki, who also smiled from this as she looked at Izuku. Do you want to play with her? She asked him as Izuku looked hesitant for a moment before nodding. Sie stimmten zu. Mine said to Frida, which made her jump in joy before dragging a yelping Izuku to the playground. They will become the greatest of friends. Fubuki said, which made mine look at her. Greatest? He already has a best friend, and he can be a bit rough around the edges. Loud and thick-headed? You have some experience? A lot, believe me. At the start of my journey. Izuku, chase. I was never alone. At the playground, Izuku could be seen happily playing with Frida as they chase each other around and laugh in joy. I have someone with me to shine in the night sky. 10 years later. Canyon. There it is. Standing around a huge crowd watching a giant villain getting kicked by a giant heroine was Izuku, who has now grown up to a strong young man. From a skinny young child, he was a teen with the body of a lightweight fighter. His muscles were defined yet was also slim. He was currently wearing a school uniform and was writing in a notebook before closing it. "And that's enough," he said before the notebook in his backpack, and walking away as he did so, he looked at his well-built arm and couldn't help but smile. "I'm getting close. I could feel it." Izuku was now in his school, as he was currently in his class writing on a notebook, even when his classmates suddenly cheered and used their quirks in joy. "Sensei, don't lump me with these losers." Sitting just a row in front of him was a young man with spiky blonde hair and red eyes, and he was currently leaning on his chair with his feet on his desk. He is Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku's childhood friend. "You can't compare me to these rejects, because their quirks aren't jack shit to mine," he boasted, which made every student except Izuku yell at him in anger. "Oh, yeah, I've forgotten. Bakugo is gunning for you, isn't he?" the teacher said, which shocked the entire class as they whisper among themselves. Izuku just let out a sigh as he rested his chin on his hand while he watched Katsuki continue to draw the ire of the entire class as he stood on his desk. While the blonde is quite smart and strong, he does have quite a short fuse. He especially knew this personally since they play when they were kids. "Oh, yeah, now that you mention it, didn't Midoriya want to go to UA as well?" the teacher said, which made the class froze in place, except for Katsuki as he turned toward the green-haired teen. And let out a vicious laugh. "And I was wondering if you were chickening out," he said to Izuku, who could only chuckle from this. "Oh, please. Like I would miss the chance to knock you down a peg," Izuku said as Katsuki got off his desk, walked over to Izuku, and placed a hand there with a savage grin on his face. "Really? I think you have some pegs to be knocked down, too," the blonde said, which prompted Izuku and gave a confident smirk as he stood up to face Katsuki. "Let's see about that," he said as the two of them stared at each other down that their classmates were worried if they were going to fight. But their teacher quickly intervened. "Whoa, now. We aren't allowed to use our quirks here. So settle down, you two, and let's continue our class." The two just continued staring at each other down before sitting back down to their respective seats, which made their classmates sigh in relief, yet the two never left their gaze at each other. This isn't over. Those were the thoughts of the two before returning their attention to class. Dururu. It was now the end of class as students of Alder came out of the schoolyards to go hang out and do what other things people their age do. Standing by the school's gate and vocalizing a tune was Frida, and like Izuku, she has grown up considerably. She was now beautiful, while keeping her hair short. Frida was also a medium height and is slender yet athletic. She was wearing a school uniform, but was different from Aldera's. As she waited, Frida then saw Katsuki walking out of the school as she smiled at the sight of him. "Verdamter Junge," she called out to him as she waved towards him, which made Katsuki notice her. "Usagi," Katsuki said with a raised eyebrow. "Ja," Frida said with a smile on her face, but then she looked confused as she looks behind the blonde. "Zuku, where?" The nerd went to the bathroom, but the nearest one broke. "So he went to one in the back," he said to her. "Shame," Frida said with a disappointed look on her face before an optimistic smile on her face. "I call him later. We meet later." Katsuki scoffed at this and said, "Are you going to date or some shit?" Frida was taken aback when she heard this and just laughs. Neen. Hang out only. While she does say that in confidence, she was blushing a bit with a shaky smile. Katsuki just rolled his eyes as he walked away and said, "Keep telling yourself that." Frida then looked towards Aldera before pulling out her phone, tapping on it with a bit of a struggle before putting away and walked towards her new destination. Izuku walking in an alley as he pulled out his phone to see if he had missed something when he was in the bathroom a minute ago and saw he has gotten a message. "Zuku, I was outside. Meet at restaurant Yukihira, Frida. Izuku chuckled from this. Even now, she still struggles with Japanese. He then typed a message to her. I am heading there now. I'll use a shortcut to get there. He then put back his phone in his pocket as he continues walking and entered a tunnel. As he walks in, he began to feel something was wrong as his eyes became focused and his body tenses. Storm. Izuku muttered as he took a small step, which creates a small gust of air. Gloop. Scythe. Izuku then twists his body and did powerful spin kick with his right foot that generated a powerful air current. Ah! Splat. Izuku, who now has his right foot on the ground, looked to see that it was a pile of sludge with eyes and teeth that was now splattered on the wall. Well, that takes care of that, he muttered as he relaxed himself and let down his right foot, but immediately a huge amount of pain when he put some weight on it as he raised it back up and held it. Ah shit, I thought I got the hang of it already. Clang. Have no fear, for I am, huh? What happened here? After a sewer cover was launched into the air, a man came out in confidence. He is a massive man with an equally muscular and well-defined physique. He has chiseled features on his face with a strong jawline, pronounced cheekbones, and bushy eyebrows. He has short blonde hair, swept backward, with two distinct tufts sticking above his head, leaning slightly to each side. His robust features regularly cast a dark shadow over his face, hiding everything but his bright blue eyes. He is All Might, the #1 hero of Japan, aka Tashinori Yagi. He then looked confused, but then noticed Izuku as a grin appeared on his face. Young Midoriya. All Might shouted in joy as Izuku chuckles a bit. Hey, All Might, Izuku said before looking at the splattered sludge and looking back at the hero. So you were chasing that? I was indeed. That man there has just recently did a robbery and I was nearby. So I chased him, got into the sewers, and here we are. All Might said with his hands on his hips while doing a dramatic pose which made Izuku laugh. Never change. Izuku before hopping to a wall and lean on it, which All Might noticed. So you've been making progress? All Might asked as he began to collect the robber in water bottles. Yeah. I have been following my uncle's exercise plan for a long time and have just started training 4 years ago, but I'm not at the same level as him. Izuku admitted as he pulled up his right pant sleeve to reveal a large bruise that started to form on his foot. Right now, I just need more control. All Might nods at this as he closed off the last bottle that contains the robber and said, Indeed, IT would be disastrous if you can't control it, especially to you and those around you. Yeah, my mom and sister would scold me when I returned with this, Izuku said as the two of them chuckled a bit. Well, farewell, young Midoriya, and tell your family that I said HI, All Might said before jumping away. Izuku waved at him as the #1 hero went away before letting out a sigh. Well, gotta get to Yukihira with a sprained foot, Izuku muttered in dismay as he began to walk, but each step of his right foot made him grimace. This would be a long walk. Izuku just keeps walking in an awkward gait. X. Frida could be seen waiting in a traditional-style-looking restaurant as she sat by a table, as she was currently bored as swings her legs back and forth. Hey, Frida. Frida then looked to see someone standing by her. It was a teenage girl that was the same age as Frida with auburn hair and a side ponytail and some cowlicks sticking up from the other side and golden brown eyes. She is wearing a school uniform that was different from her and Aldera's. Oh, Gadako-chan. Frida said in joy as she and the other girl hugged each other before letting each other go. Nice seeing you. The feeling is mutual, the other girl said as she and Frida sat down. So, how have you been? Doing great. Study good. Frida said, which made Gadako gave her a teasing look. And you aren't using videos? This made Frida pout as she said, Not my fault. Japanese hard. Already knew German and English. Couldn't fault any of that. Even I have time learning German, Gadako said before looking at Frida. So, where's Izuku? Running late. Coming later, Frida explained as Gadako nodded. So, while we wait, Gadako then showed a paper bag with an octopus logo on it. Want to have some takoyaki? Had me with takoyaki. X. Gosh damn it. Izuku is walking awkwardly along the streets as he grimaces each time he took a step with his right foot. Sis will scold me, Mom will scold me, and my aunts will scold me. Izuku mumbled as he winces when he took another step. I am really starting to regret using that move instead of the ones I couldn't control yet. Boom! Izuku then looked up ahead to see smoke rising from a few blocks away. Was that Dash? Boom! Fuck off, sludge fucker. Yep, that was Katsuki all right, Izuku said with a deadpan look on his face. How can he shout so loud that I can hear him from a few blocks away? Boom! Die! Well, better get there so I can get his ass out of trouble again, he muttered as he changed his course. X. Katsuki could be seen sitting by the doors of an ambulance with the back of his uniform destroyed along with the sleeves while the paramedics tend to him. So... He then noticed Izuku approaching him. Not gonna talk about it, nerd, the blonde grumbled as Izuku raised his hands in surrender. Okay, the green-haired teen said before looking at one of the paramedics. Can you also tend to me? I have a sprained foot, and I have been walking with it for miles. Why didn't you call? The paramedic asked, which made Izuku grimace. A friend of mine and I were going to hang out, so I didn't want to miss it, he said as the paramedic gave him an unimpressive look. Kids these days. The paramedic muttered as Izuku sat beside Katsuki, who watched remove his right shoe to reveal that it was bruised. How did you get your foot sprained? A guy made of sludge tried to jump me, but I noticed him before he could do anything and kicked him hard to wall, Izuku said, which made Katsuki grimace. He looks at his blonde friend in conclusion, but he quickly thought about it. Are you kidding me? We were jumped by the same guy? How did you get caught? Oh, shut it. I would have noticed him if he didn't fucking pounce at me out of nowhere. I didn't even sense him following me. I just felt him for a few seconds. But that can't be. Uncle Toshi caught him and puts him in bottles. I was there when he showed up and jumped away from the scene. Then how the fuck? The two of them thought of it more before facepalming. He fucking dropped the bottles along the jump? He dropped the bottles along the jump. Fuck sake, Katsuki groaned. All right. Let's not talk about this anymore. He'll eventually know this later. Izuku said as Katsuki looks at him. Wanna bet your aunt and my mom beat the crap out of him? I don't have to. That's a guarantee. X. Izuku could then be seen arriving at restaurant Yukihira just after dusk with bandages around his right foot and a crutch supporting him. There on a table was Frida, who was sleeping, which made him guilty seeing her like this as he approached her and shook her a bit. Hey, Frida. Izuku whispered her a bit as Frida slowly opened her eyes before stretching her body and letting out a yawn when she finally noticed Izuku and smiled. Izuku, she said in delight before pouting. You where? Waiting here hours. Then she noticed the crutch and cast that Izuku has, which horrified her. You okay? She asked in worry, which made Izuku chuckle a bit. I'm fine. A robber tried to jump me, but I defended myself and my foot got sprained in the process. Izuku explained as he then sat down at the opposite seat to Frida. And for why I am late, that same robber tried to jump Bakugo, but that was a big mistake. So I was there to check on him while the paramedics check on my foot. They said that will be fine. I just need to not put too much pressure on it. Don't worry me, okay? Frida said to him as Izuku smiled. Okay, he said, which made Frida smile. Are you two ready to order? The two of them then looked to see someone standing before them. It was a man in his 40s with spiky dark red hair, with short bangs and yellow eyes, with a vertical scar on his left eyebrow. He is wearing the restaurant's uniform and an apron. Oh, good afternoon, Yukihira-san. Izuku greeted the man who smirked at him. You have been getting into trouble. You even made Frida wait for an hour, he said to him. Kadako stayed. Then Gudao came. They studied downstairs. Frida said as she points down. So next time, be mindful of your lady friend, the older man said with a smirk on his face as the two teens blush. Yukihira-san, /or Soma, the two teens yelled at the man who just laughed at the two. All right, what do you two want? He asked as he pulled out a pen and a notepad. Both Izuku and Frida then calmed down as they then said their order, but they were diverting their eyes away from each other. X. A month of no training will be fine. Izuku was now back home, as he was currently on his bed as he looks at the ceiling. Although, I only managed to convince him to not make it 5. He thought as he winced when he thought of the scolding that he got from his family, but a determined look was then on his face. I'm getting closer to my dream. He then raised his right arm as he looked at how much progress that he has made. Just a few more months it will start. Izuku then clenched his fist as a smirk formed on his face. It will be my next step to becoming a hero. Izuku then let down his arm as a look of melancholy appeared on his face. I wish you were here to see me, Dad. A small smile then appeared on his face. I wish you can see me right now. You are my little green star. He smiled when he remembered those words. I will be the brightest star you will ever see. Far away from civilization, in the mountainous area of Japan, it was peaceful where nature is undisturbed and the local wildlife lives peacefully. Boom! Ah! Until this happened, Izuku could be seen tumbling on the ground till he hits a tree, which broke on impact. Ow! Izuku groaned in pain as he then sat up. Had enough? He then looks to see someone walking over to him. It was an ordinary-looking bald man with brown eyes, a thin but well-built physique, and is of average height and weight. He wears an enoki mushroom shirt, a pair of jeans, and sneakers. He is currently looking at Izuku with a smile on his face, which the green-haired teen returned. Not a chance, Saitama Aji, Izuku said as he got up to his feet, but stumbled a bit forward. Looks like you do, the older man said, which made Izuku groan and sat on the ground with his uncle doing the same. I guess my foot is not healed enough, Izuku muttered. Yeah, I was the same. It wouldn't hurt much if you just let it out, his uncle said as he looked at his fist. I thought of that before, only having my strength in my years as a hero, but I eventually learned to control it, to make it more compatible around people. How long did that take you? Izuku asked. Years. It only took me 2 more years after graduating that I finally got used it. 5 years. After that, I began to rise through the ranks, his uncle said before looking at Izuku. And since you started really young, you might achieve it before getting to UA. You think so? Unless we keep it smoothly, there wouldn't be a problem, his uncle said before standing up. All right, let's take a break. Your mother might be done cooking lunch. Yeah, Izuku said as he also stood up before they walk alongside each other. The two of them then reach a campsite where there are 3 people there, and one of them is Izuku's Aunt Fubuki, who was setting some plates on 2 picnic tables. The other 2 were also women. The first one is a slim woman that resembles a lot like Izuku. Like Izuku, the woman has large and circular eyes. Her hair and eyes are also green, but in a slightly darker shade than her son's. Her hair is straight and shoulder length, with a small and spiky ponytail at the back. This is Izuku's mother, Inko. The second one is a young woman that looked a bit older than Izuku. She has shoulder-length emerald, green hair with short choppy bangs, energetic green eyes, and orange painted eyes. She also has a pair of silver goggles with red lenses. Hey everyone. Izuku called out to them as the 3 women look at the 2. The girl with goggles, who is sitting on the bench with a phone in hand, has a smirk on her face and said, Got your ass handed by Saitama Aji? Ha-ha! Izuku sarcastically laughed with a deadpan look on his face. Laugh it up. Now, Gumi, don't tease your brother. Inko, who was cooking, said, which made Izuku let out a sigh. At least Mom dash. Although, I don't think he didn't receive enough after what happened. Inko said as she thought of the 4 weeks back when Izuku came out home with his sprained foot. Never mind. Izuku grumbled as Saitama laughed from this and patted his shoulder while Fubuki let out a giggle. So where are the others? Saitama asked Inko. Well, boom. Over there, she said as they looked at the distance to see smoke in the distance. Saitama let out a whistle as he saw this and said, That Bakugo boy is really pushing himself. Did you at least call him for lunch? Izuku asked his mother. Of course. We wouldn't leave them out of this, his mother said to him with a smile on her face. We did invite them along. At least he wouldn't curse around because we have Klee with us. Gumi commented as she was typing on her phone. That is true, Fubuki said before looking at Izuku and Saitama. So, how much progress did you make? Well, he is not getting bruised anymore, so that's some progress, Saitama explained. Thank goodness. We wouldn't worry about you in a hospital, Inko said in relief, but there was some mirth in her tone which made Izuku look at his mother with a deadpan look and his aunt and sister giggle from this. I am really getting ganged up here, Izuku mumbled as his uncle patted his nephew on his shoulder. Well, Someone has to make sure that you are okay, Saitama said to him. They are worried for you, and they want to be there for you. Izuku chuckled from this and said, Thanks, Saitama Aji. Speaking of someone, where's Frida? Gumi asked as she put away her phone and looked at Izuku. You two usually hang out, but I didn't see her around lately. Frida has started her training, Izuku explained with a small smile on his face. She is preparing for Yudata 2, and she is trying to catch up with us. Well, good for her, Inko said with a smile on her face. The three of you have been friends for a long time, and it would be great if the three of you gotten together. It does sound great, Izuku said in agreement while Gumi had a cheeky smile on her face. Are you missing her already? She said in a teasing tone which made Izuku blush, and he glared at her. It's nothing like that, he said with a blushing face which made Gumi laugh. Your face is like a tomato, says you, Carrot Top. This time, Gumi blushed as she glared at his brother. You won't go there, huh? Hey, you started it. Did not. Did too. While the two squabbles, the adults in the group just smiled at the sight. I'll make sure that they won't hurt each other much, Fubuki said as she approached the two. They grow up so fast. Inko said with a proud look on her face, but then it became somber. I just wished Hisashi was still here to see this. If he was, he would be proud that his daughter is a rising idol and his son will become a hero, Saitama said to her, which made Inko smile. Yeah, he would be. Inko-bachan. The two of them then looked to see Katsuki walking towards them with four people beside him, one of them running towards Inko. The first one is a youthful woman that resembles Katsuki. She has spiky ash-blonde hair and red eyes. Next is a middle-aged man of average height and build who has short brown hair similar in style to Katsuki, a short mustache, and rectangular glasses. Next is a male mechanical cyborg of average human height. His face and ears look like that of a normal human, made of artificial skin material, and his eyes have black sclera with yellow irises. He has spiky blonde hair, and his eyebrows are blonde. He also has pierced ears and a pair of mechanical arms. Lastly, the one running towards Inko is a little girl with pale skin, light red eyes, pale blonde hair with prominent cowlick, and tied in pigtails and elfin ears. She also has a large red newsboy cap with a pin featuring a clover insignia and two white feathers. Hello, Klee, Inko said as the little girl jumped into her arms, and Inko hugged her. Are you hungry? We are making your favorite. Yay! Klee cheered, which made the blonde woman laugh. Come on, Inko, don't spoil my daughter too much, the woman said, which made Inko giggle a bit. So, Genos, how is the kid's training? Saitama asked the cyborg. He is making great progress. His explosive power increased along with his reflexes and tactics. The cyborg said as Saitama laughs and pats him on the back. Great work. Katsuki needs a lot to improve, and I expect that you do that for him, the bald man said, which made Geno smile. Yes, sensei. Genos, which made Saitama wince. Come on, don't call me that. I'm not that old. But you are my sensei. Because you were persistent. Everyone then laughs at the sight of the two as Inko then claps her hands together. All right, everyone, let's eat, she said to everyone. Dibs on the macaroni. Hey, no fair. Don't throw away the freaking hot sauce. Oniai-chan, pass me the fish. The adults then chuckled as they watched the kids fighting for who gets what. Hey, let's go in as well before our kids take them all, the blonde woman said to Inko, who giggles a bit. With our boys, they might as well eat an entire buffet with how much they are gulping down. The adults then joined the children as they also ate as well. At Hokkaido, Japan, boom, Well, Frida could be seen laying in the middle of a yard of a large traditional Japanese house, as she was breathing heavily, while black smoke was blown away inches from her. Tired already, Frida? Frida then looked to see two people standing over her. They were two girls who looked like twins, if not for obvious differences between the two. They have the same height, a pair of horns on their heads, and a single black streak of hair that is on their forehead. Then there's the first differences. The first one has long pink hair and long pigtails that is blue halfway down, blue eyes, and a cheerful demeanor. The other has blue hair and a braid that is pink halfway down, pink eyes, and a calm demeanor. Still, Frida said between breathes. Hey now, it's not wrong to have a break. Frida then looked to see her Aunt Mine standing over her. I still can go, Frida stubbornly said. Nope, you will be resting. Mine said firmly as Frida pouted a bit. Still can go, Frida repeated stubbornly as she sat up. And you need rest. You think I didn't see you struggle with it? Mine questioned her as she looked to where the black smoke dissipated. You have been neglecting it lately. For once, Frida has a sad look on her face. I'm scared. Mine looked at Frida in worry as she then looked towards the two little girls. Haim, Mikoto, you two prepare the bed and medicine, and ask your father if lunch is ready. Hi, Kasan, the girl said before going inside the house. As the two left, Mine sat on the ground beside Frida. Is it because of it? Mine asked. Yeah, Frida said as she held her legs close. I know it is hard to control. Heck, I had a hard time controlling mine when I was close to your age, Mine admitted as she shrugs a bit. Even your uncle had a hard time controlling his. Frida then looks at her and said, How did you and uncle control yours? Well, while mine was not hard to manage, your uncle does, especially when he learns the side effects, but he eventually controls it now and healing from it. You think I can too? Well, if you can keep going, you can, Mine said to her in an assuring tone. You do want to be heroes with your friends, right? Yeah. Then do it for them. Be by their side as you learn and become a hero and help them in their time of need. I will, Frida said with a smile on her. Mine then puts her hand on Frida's shoulder. But don't overexert yourself. You still have time, Mine said to her with a warm smile on her face. You are young. Have as much time for yourself, but never forget what you want to do. Hi. Ka-san, the bed is ready. The two of them looked to see the pink-haired twin by the door of the house. Then the blue-haired then appeared by her side. And Tusen said that lunch is ready. All right, you two go on ahead. I'll lead your cousin to bed, and don't even think about eating all of it. I know it's Wagyu Wednesday. Kay. Both twins inside before running off. They are going to eat a lot, Frida commented. They know that they will not have snacks if they did, especially Haim. If not, that's their loss. We even have their favorite snack. The fish pastry? It's called taiyaki, and yes, it is, and it's the cheese-flavored one. Won't they find it? Oh, I hid it someone they couldn't find. X. Mikoto, the pink-haired twin whined as she looked around the living room, turning over some of the furniture at the process. It's not here. Not here either, Haim, the blue-haired twin said as she looked inside an empty vase. Then try harder. Why couldn't we just wait? Because I want one now. X. In the kitchen of the house, a man could be seen cooking the wagyu on a pan with an apron on. He is of average height with red eyes with crossed slit pupil at the center, medium-length brown hair, 3 short horns on his head, 1 on the back and 2 on the sides, and scales covering his arms. He then heard the ruckus from the living room as he chuckled a bit. Haim never changed. At least Mikoto is trying to be reasonable with her, he said as he looked at a paper bag with vegetables in it, and there was a taiyaki inside, and chuckling again before focusing to cooking again. Izuku and Katsuki could be seen standing in front of a large gate, the gate towards a prestigious school of Udata High. After months of intense training, the two of them have finally arrived here. The school of their dreams. This is a huh? Izuku asked the blonde. Hell yeah, Katsuki said as he took a step forward, but noticed Izuku didn't move. Oi, nerd, are you coming? I just want to stay here for a moment, Izuku said as he looked at the gate. Katsuki just shrugged and said, Suit yourself. The blonde then continues to walk towards the building while Izuku then has a smile on his face. This is it, he thought as he let out a sigh. My first step to become a hero. Zuku. Izuku then blinks as he looks behind him to see Frida running towards him with a smile on her face. Izuku also smiled when he saw her as he said, Frida, you're here. Of course. Don't want to miss. Frida said cheerfully, Well, I hope we would be in the same class then. Me too. The both of them walk together as they then happily chatter with each other. X. Welcome one and all to my live show. A man could be seen standing on stage with hundreds of students in front of him. He is a tall, slim man with long blonde hair, which he wears spiked upwards in a large tuft behind his head, and a small brown mustache. He has rectangular eyes with concentric pupils and greenish-yellow irises. He wears a black jacket with a very tall collar, upturned and complete with studs, and matching black pants and knee-high boots. He sports tan shoulder pads and a red belt and elbow pads, all studded in black fingerless gloves. His neck is obscured by a directional speaker. He also wears a pair of headphones with the word Hage written on the headband and a pair of orange-tinted shades. He is Hizashi Yamada, a.k.a. Present Mike. Can I get a hey? Hey! Frida cheerfully said with her hands in the air, which made Present Mike smile. I like you, little listener. Seats away from Frida, Izuku chuckled from this, while Katsuki, who was sitting beside him, rolled his eyes. Now pay close attention, listeners. Present Mike announced, we'll be testing your mettle by running a 10-minute practice run at our replica city district. You can take whatever you like. Everybody gather at the designated meeting area after the presentation, you dig? So, they don't intend on letting classmates or friends cooperate with each other, huh? Katsuki muttered as he looked to see Izuku's ticket, and he scoffed when it was hey, I would have loved to crush you on the test. Yeah, right. If we were in the same testing ground, I'll crush you, Izuku said with a smirk on his face, which made Katsuki look at him competitively. Let's just see. Present Mike then continues his explanation as he uses Super Mario Bros. Villains to help illustrate the point system. So, your goal, little listeners, are to rack up a high score. And don't even think about attacking others directly or any other anti-hero stuff, 'cause that's against the rules, capiche? Excuse me, may I ask a question? Standing from a few rows down from where Izuku and Katsuki was a young man. He is a relatively tall and muscular young man with a wide frame. He has short dark blue hair, flattened neatly down and parted on the right side of his head, a small patch completely shaved near the base of his head, and rather square eyes which match the notably pointed shape of his jaw. He also has glasses with rectangular lenses. On the handout, there are clearly 4 types of villains labeled. Such an error would be the highest embarrassment for a top-tier National Academy of UA's caliber, he said, while pointing at one part of the school's pamphlet that he was holding up. The reason we are seated here today is because we seek guidance to becoming model heroes. He then points to Frida. And you? Frida looks at him with a smile still on her face. You shouldn't be loud. But you're loud now. That is true, my apologies. It's okay. Izuku just lightly snickers from this, while Katsuki rolls his eyes in amusement. Anyways, thank you for the segue. Much appreciated. Examiner 7111. The 4th type of villain is worth 0 points. Let's call them arena traps. Have any of you ever played Super Mario Bros. Before? I guess it's rather retro. Then the screen behind showcased the silhouette of the villain, with the silhouette of set of thwomp. You remember those things that'd go thwomp on you. There's a thing like in each area. Their gimmick is that they rampage when crowded. The students began to understand that the blue-haired young man nodding in satisfaction. Thank you very much. I apologize for being rude. Izuku then looked at Katsuki with a grin on his face and said, Are you ready for this? Katsuki just scoffed and said, Of course I am. I have been training for this. Then let's make sure that we reach the top, he said as he raised his fist up. The both of them bumped their fist as Present Mike continues to talk. Izuku could be seen walking over to his bus along with the many other examinees in a green sports jacket, green jogging pants, and red sneakers when Izuku gasped a bit when someone was clinging on his back, and he saw a smiling Frida behind him. She was wearing a black jacket, green shorts, and black sneakers. Frida, Izuku said in joy. So, you will be going to the same area as me? Frida then climbed higher as she rides on his shoulders, and she had to bend forward to look at Izuku straight on his face. Yep, she said with a grin on her face. Well, we shouldn't wait for the others, Izuku said as Frida then looked ahead and pointed forward. Onwards. Izuku chuckles and said, By your command. He then carries Frida on their way to the bus. The two then saw that the last one before them to the bus was the young man from earlier. He was now wearing a blue shirt, blue shorts which showed off his calves with exhaust pipes protruding from it, and sneakers. Before he could get in, he saw the two and blocked their path. "Hold it," he called to them as the two of them stopped in front of him. "What are the two of you doing?" "Want be with my friend," Frida said. "Shouldn't you be in a different bus? You know, since students in the same school can't be in the same test area. Different schools. Still friends. Also assigned here." Frida explained as a young man, then nods in understanding when he heard this. "I see. Sorry for accusing you." The young man apologized for looking at the two. "Can you at least get off him?" "Okay." Frida then jumped off Izuku's shoulder before offering her hand to the young man, which confused him. Frida Jaeger. "I'm from Germany," she said to him. "Ah, Tenya. Ida Tenya." He introduced himself as he then shook her hand. "I hope you have a good time here." "Been here since young." "It is good." Frida replied with a smile, which Tenya nodded to her answer. "My name is Izuku, Midoriya Izuku." Izuku quickly interjects, "And I think we need to get in the bus." "Oh, right," Tenya said in realization, as the three of them then entered their bus, as all examinees were now being transported to their respective test areas. Izuku, Frida, and Tenya's bus then reached their assigned test area, as the three of them and the other examinees were standing in front of a huge gate where some concrete structures could be seen poking from over the wall. Izuku whistled at this and said, "Damn, how huge do you think this place is?" "I think to showcase every examinee's performance, without many of them being compact in one place, it should at least be the size of 3 city blocks," Tenya deduced. "If they do this, why no help in building?" Frida asked, "I think with this being a hero school, they would need a lot to pay for possible lawsuits." Izuku deduced before stretching his legs. "Might as well get ready." "Excellent idea," Tenya said in agreement as he does some stretches as well. Frida said as she does some stretches as well. As they were stretching for a minute and a half, they could hear President Mick's voice. "And start." All of the examinees heard this as the gates opened. "Let's go," Frida said as she began to push Izuku and Tenya forward. "Wait," Tenya tried to say. "What's the matter?" "There's no such thing as a countdown in a real battle. Run, run. Consider the baton passed." Izuku chuckled from this and said, "You heard him. Let's go." Frida cheered as the other examinees rushed in as well. Izuku then split off from Tenya and Frida as he went deeper in the faux city. Where these robots could be," Izuku said as he looked around. "Crash." Izuku then had to skid to a halt as a one-pointer broke through a building to block his path. Target lock on. Murder. Izuku just grins and charged forward. Here we go. As the one-pointer went to strike him, the green-haired teen jumped and landed on its arm. Izuku then ran on it as he went straight for the head with his fist reeled back. "Take this." Bang, bang, pow. Izuku then landed 3 consecutive punches on the one-pointer's head, with the first 2 almost removing it from its hinges till the last one finally flung it high in the air. As the broken robot fell over, Izuku landed on the ground with a roll before getting up and continuing to search for more points. All right, 34 points. Somewhere else, Frida could be seen running through the faux city with her short white hair flowing with the wind, her red eyes filled with excitement, and a wide smile on her face. On her right hand was a black revolver that was decorated with a single red rose and blue feathers. Frida jumps from a large pile of debris and fires a bullet made of yellow energy, which whizzes through the air, but it suddenly changes course midair and hits a 3-pointer. "That's 27, she said in joy as she fired another shot that went through 3 2-pointers. "And that's 33. NICHD WRTWST. Frida then held her head in pain and said, "Skice. Ich dacht. It's word Michigan Darren Giwonen." Boom. Frida then looked toward the distance to see pieces of various robots high in the air just a block away from her, and she could laugh a bit as she knew who could possibly do this. Same old Zuku. Clang. Frida then looked to see more robots running out of a corner. Well, better get more, she said before chasing the robots. X. Ha! Izuku delivered an axe kick to a three-pointer's face, which destroyed it, and then lands on the ground with a roll as he quickly went to the sidewalk with sweat dripping from his face. That is 35, he muttered between tired breaths. I just hope the written test still gets me in. It has been 8 minutes now, and the number of robots was now dwindling, which is lowering his chances to get more points. 2 minutes left. Well, that doesn't make it better. I hope Frida is having better luck than me, he muttered before walking over to the road. Vroom. He then feels the ground rumble as he hears a low, rattling groan, which he and the other examinees look around for till they eventually find it. Holy shit! One of the examinees screamed, and Izuku couldn't blame them. Standing in front of them was a 0-pointer, and it was the size of a 7-story building. Most of the students were running away when Izuku saw something on ruined streets. A girl could be seen with her legs trapped under some rubble. Zuku. Izuku then looked behind him to see Frida standing from a distance. Let's go. He then looks back to the trapped girl, to the 0-pointer, then to the gun in Frida's hand. Give me cover, he called out to Frida before running towards the 0-pointer. Zuku. Frida tried to call out to him, but she then noticed the trapped brunette. I see. Frida then aimed her gun at the 0-pointer as black miasma surrounds her gun. She let out a deep sigh and fired. Bang! Boom! Her shot created a large blast that made the 0-pointer stagger back as Frida slowly shoots more of them as Izuku nears a mechanical behemoth. Boom! 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 Here we go. Izuku then jumped and landed on his feet, but he bent his legs down, compressing the muscles on his legs. He then looked directly at the 0-pointer, who was now recovering from Frida's barrage as she was now trying to rest. X. Izuku could be seen back at the mountains where he was sitting on the ground while Saitama stood beside a massive boulder. So, we will be going to the basics, all right, and no complaining, Saitama said to him as he pointed at Izuku before facing the massive boulder. First, concentrate all of your power. X. Storm. He then leaped into the air, the ground where he once stood cracked, and he was now spinning in the air with his arms out wide. X. Second, use your very momentum to increase it. He then reeled his right arm back with his fist clenched, his body twisting to the right, and his left foot forward while the right is behind. X. An exhausted Frida and the other examinees watch as Izuku clench his right fist and teeth. X. Then with all of your strength to force it forward. X. Hammer. X. Deliver a destructive blow. Saitama then launched his fist forwards in a blink of an eye. X. Boom. Izuku's punch struck through, and the amount of energy and force he generated crushed the face of the 0-pointer and made it fall backwards. X. Izuku could only watch as the boulder was shattered into bits. But not only that, but the trees behind it were also broken down as well. Saitama then looked at his nephew with a smile on his face. What I did to you these past few weeks, I have been testing you. This will be your first lesson for me, and I hope you will listen to the rest. Hi, Izuku said in eagerness. X. The other examinees could only watch in awe while Frida had a look of amazement on her face. Amazing, Zuku. Izuku then began to fall to ground as he began to panic. Shit, shit, shit. I didn't think this through. Zuku. Frida screamed in fear and worry as she watched her green-haired friend falling from the sky. Izuku continues to think through his possible options, but the ground was getting closer and closer to him. Oh, screw it. Izuku quickly reeled his arms back before performing a powerful clap, which caused him to slow down due to the shockwave that he created. But his lower arms bruised a bit from that, which made Izuku grit his teeth from the pain. He then adjusts himself in the air before landing and rolling on the ground. He then stops with his back on the ground and groans. Yeah, not going to do that again anytime soon. Zuku. He then looks to see Frida running towards him with a bit of a stagger, and the right sleeve of her jacket was torn. The test is over. Izuku just let out a sigh as he splayed himself on the ground, and Frida kneeled by his side. You okay? Frida asked in worry as Izuku had to force a smile through the pain he was feeling. Never better, he said, which made Frida laugh a bit in relief as she gave him a smile. Hey, you two, are you okay? The two then saw the girl, who was leaning on a large piece of robot, and they now have a clear view of her appearance. She is a short girl with a slender yet curvy figure, fair skin, and auburn hair with eyes that match in color. She has perpetual pink blush marks on her cheeks, and her eyes are large and round with thick upper lashes. Two more extended and more prominent ones on either side and fewer, but more individually pronounced lower lashes. Her hair is shoulder-length with short bangs, and the style is bobbed with two long strands framing her face. She has small, thick pads on her fingertips similar to the digits of an animal's paws. "Yeah, I'm fine," Izuku said as he let out a sigh. "My body is just too tired to move." "Then make sure that you don't hurt yourself, you stubborn boy." The three of them looked to see someone walking over to them. It was a short, elderly woman with gray hair styled into a netted bun, a large syringe poking diagonally out of it to the left. She has a notably small nose and eyes, and a long mouth with defined nasolabial folds. She wears a doctor's lab coat and a dress with yellow and red vest-like designs on either side, 2 yellow buttons, and a belt with a pink R-shaped buckle. She wears pink boots and has a helmet around the sides of her head, a purple-tinted visor joining it over her eyes. In addition, she walks with a cane designed like a syringe that she can also use for healing the injured. This is Chio Shizenji, a.k.a. Recovery Girl. Izuku let out a nervous laugh and said, "Sorry. You are just like your uncle, reckless and stubborn," she said as Chio then stood by Izuku's side before puckering up her lips. "Smooch." Izuku could only shiver as Recovery Girl kissed him on the cheek, while Frida and the other examinees looked at this in surprise. Then his bruise slowly disappeared, and he sat up. "Still not used to that," Izuku muttered, but he was hit on the head by Recovery Girl's cane. "Well, you should if you get into UA. I will be healing all your injuries," she said to him before looking at Frida. "Any injuries, young lady?" "Strained wrist," Frida said as she raised her right hand, which prompted Recovery Girl to kiss it. The white hair then moved her hand around, and she smiled. "Feels great. Then I'll be on my way then. There are still many examinees that I need to check. Recovery Girl before checking the rest." "Well, better get our stuff back," Izuku said as he stood up. "Ja!" Frida said in agreement, as she also stood before looking at Izuku. "Go to Yukihira?" "Why not? I think the twins have already done their exams to their chosen school, so let's eat with them." "Ja!" As Recovery Girl finished healing another examinee, she looked to see Izuku and Frida walking by each other's sides as the elderly woman smiled at the sight. "Young love," she said before going back to do her job. A week later, Izuku is having dinner with his sister and mother as he feels a bit anxious. "Come on, Zuku. Don't be nervous about it. You did a good job," Gumi said to assure him. "I'm not nervous about that," he said as he took a bite of his food. "I just want to know if I beat Kachin." Whack! Ow! He held his head in pain when his sister hit him on the head with a closed fist. "Don't make everything a competition between you two," Gumi said in annoyance, while Inko giggles from this. "And besides, I heard from Klee that the walking warhead has a lot of points." "Not making everything a competition," she says, adding fuel to it. Izuku said in a snarky tone. "What are you going to do about it?" she said smugly. "I'll tell Miku that you're bullying me." "Oh no," she said in a sarcastic tone. "What will I ever going to do?" "There is also that time when we were little that you might like," he said with a smug smile, which made Gumi frown. "Like how you wouldn't like to separate with your favorite toy and cry about it. What was it again, Ninjin-chan?" "You wouldn't? What are you going to do about it?" he said smugly, which made his sister glare at him. "Enough of that, you two," Inko said to them. "We are having dinner, so let's enjoy this, or I'll bring out the spatula." The siblings shivered from the threat and continued eating. Izuku was now in his room as he was writing in his notebook, but he stopped for a moment as he had a thoughtful look on his face. "I wonder if Frida is doing okay," he muttered as he tapped his pen on his desk. Bang! 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 "Izuku, it's here." He heard his mother's voice after hearing her banging on his door. He quickly stood up and opened the door to see her in front of his door with a letter in hand and a look of anticipation on her face. Izuku looked at the letter in anticipation as well before grabbing it and closing the door behind him. He then rushed over to his desk and sat down before letting out a sigh as he looked at the letter nervously. He eventually opened it as he saw a strange device inside. Izuku grabbed it and looked at it in wonder, but a flash of light from it made him flinch and drop it on his desk. Am I on screen? Izuku's sight then recovers as he looked to see a projection of All Might X outside his room. Inko could be seen pacing in front of his door with a nervous look on his face. Hey, Kasen. Inko then stopped and saw Gumi walking over to her. Is Izuku still reading it? I think they're using projection this time, Inko said, which made Gumi raise an eyebrow. They have been upgrading a lot lately. You have no idea. So, when do you think Dash? Ha! Eat it, Katsuki. Now! Inko said, which made Gumi let out a sigh as the younger Midoriya woman raised a finger. The brag. Shut up, nerd. Ha ha ha. The celebration. Frida, I pass. Me too. Then he will be in bed with a shit-eating grin on his bed before going to sleep. Gumi said before walking away. I'm going to sleep now. I will be busy tomorrow. Make sure you bring along the spring onion fritters with you. Mika might like it, Inko said to her. She always does. Inko could only smile at this as she felt proud of her children. I wish you were here, Hisashi, she thought before walking away from Izuku's door to continue her chores. This is it. This is the day. Izuku, do you have tissue with you? Yes, Ka-san. Izuku called out to his mother as he was tying his shoes in his new UA uniform while his mother was in the kitchen. How about your handkerchief? In my backpack, he said as he hurries. I gotta go. Izuku. Yeah. He then looks back to see his mother smiling in his way. I'm proud of you. Izuku smiled at this and said, I'll see you in Neichan soon. Izuku then faced the door, opening it, and went outside. My first day at UA. X. At UA, Izuku could be seen walking in one of the school's hallways. 1A? Where's 1A? Izuku muttered as he looked around, but stopped when he finally found it. It was a door 3 times taller than him with 1A on it. Okay, here it is. Behind this door will be my new classmates. Izuku muttered himself as he took some deep breaths before having a thoughtful look on his face. Will Katsuki be in the same class as me? Sku. He was then jumped from behind, and he looked to see that it was Frida clinging on his back in the school's female uniform. 1A2. Yep. So we will be in the same class then, he said with a smile on his face. Are you excited? Ja, she said with a smile on her face. Also, Izuku then blushed a bit. You should get off my back. It would be very embarrassing if we go in like this. Oh! Frida blushed as well as she got off his back while twiddling her thumbs. Can I ride your back? After school end? I have been meaning to ask you this for years now. Why do you always jump and ride on my back? He asked as Frida looked away. I liked it when we were young, she explained to him while blushing a bit while Izuku scratches his cheek. Okay then, he said before facing the door. Let's go inside. Ja, Frida said as Izuku then opened the door and both went in. That they saw inside was surprise for the two of them. Don't put your legs on the desk. There was Tenya yelling at Katsuki, who was reclining on his chair and one leg on the desk. Don't you think that's disrespectful to your classmates? No, as a matter, I don't think so, Katsuki said with an arrogant, smug smile on his face. Which middle school are you from anyway, you 2-bit extra? Here we go, Izuku thought as he shook his head with a smile on his face, while Frida let out a nervous laugh. A private sh-. Tenya quickly stops himself as he clears his throat. I'm from Sumai Junior High School. My name is Tenya Ida. Sumai? Katsuki hummed. Well, aren't you an elite? Seems I got a fucking reason to fucking end you after all. And me? Are you even trying to be a hero? Tenya questioned him in shock. He's just joking around. Izuku called out to him as Katsuki, and Tenya looked at him, and Frida walked over to them. Nerd. The blonde growled at him as Izuku just gave him a shit-eating grin. Still salty at me getting the highest score? Fuck you. You know this barbarian? Tenya questioned the green-haired teen while pointing at Katsuki. What the fuck you call me? He is my childhood friend, unfortunately. Izuku said in a joking tone. Don't ignore me, you fucker. Jets. Frida gets between the three with a stern look on her face. Please stop. First day. No trouble. My apologies, Tenya said, "Whatever." Katsuki said in an uncaring tone while Izuku lets out a chuckle. "It's you too." The four of them looked to see the brunette, standing by the door with a look of joy on her face. "I'm glad to see you two." "You made it," Frida said in glee as she approached her. "I can't believe it either." "I didn't think I did much," the brunette said with a hand behind her head as she looked nervous. "Neen. Sometimes saw you. You did great." "Really? Oh. I'm Frida Yeager. Ochako Urarko Ochako. Hope we could be friends." "Me too." "Well, that was fucking quick." Katsuki commented as Izuku, and Tenya watched the interaction, and the latter two could only nod in agreement. If you're hunting for buddies, do it elsewhere. Both Izuku and Katsuki then pale when they recognize the voice, while both Frida and Ochako look outside from the door. "Ein Gelbraup." Frida said out loud with a look of confusion. "Oh shit." Katsuki muttered. "This is the Department of Heroics." Shit. Izuku muttered in a panic as he looked around. "Are you Chu, okay?" Tenya asked them. "Midoriya. Bakugo." Both childhood friends and froze when they heard the voice now having a firmer tone as they slowly turned toward the door to see a man standing outside with a yellow sleeping bag in hand. He is a slender and tall, pale-skinned man with messy, shoulder-length black hair that partially hangs in front of his face and half-open black eyes. He looked worn out and fatigued. He also has a stubbly, unkempt state, and his eyes are tired and flat. He wears a baggy black outfit that consists of a long-sleeved shirt and matching pants that tuck into his boots. He also wears a utility belt and a scarf. "Don't try anything," he said to them before looking around the classroom. "It took all of you 8 seconds to quiet down. Life is short, kids. You're all lacking common sense. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shoto. Pleasure meeting all of you." While the rest of the room were shocked, both Izuku and Katsuki looked nervous. Aizawa then grabbed something in the sleeping bag and revealed to the Class UA's gym uniform. "Wear these immediately and then shove off to the P.E. grounds," he said to them before tossing the uniform to Frida and grabbing more in the sleeping bag, which is promptly passed down to everyone. "Two of you nervous." "Who is he?" Frida asked as she gave Izuku one of the uniforms. "Well, you don't see him that much due to his work, but..." Izuku then gained a sheepish look on his face. "He is my uncle." Frida wasn't the only one as the rest of the room looked at him with shocked looks on their faces. So, our homeroom teacher is your uncle, whose distant cousin married your aunt. Is that correct?" Tenya asked Izuku as they and the rest of the class were on their way to the grounds. "Yeah," Izuku said as he scratches his cheek. "I hope you will not use this in your favor." "Of course not. If I did, my uncle would kick my ass." "Really?" Tenya asked with a raised eyebrow. "If he feels like it, he will go full drill sergeant mode, and you don't want him to be in that," Izuku said as someone walked beside him. It was a young man with short gold hair, parted to the right with a black lightning-shaped streak on the left of the side fringe, which is angled to partially obscure his left eye. He has slanted, somewhat triangular golden eyes and notably small eyebrows. "That bad?" he asked in a shaky voice while having a smile on his face. "Just don't do the bare minimum, and he won't hunt your ass," Katsuki said as he was behind the three. "He can't be that bad, right?" Ochako asked nervously. "You'll change your mind when you get to know him better," Izuku said as Frida then walked behind him. "So why go to the grounds? Shouldn't we be in ceremony?" "Another thing about my uncle," Izuku then looked ahead with a hardened look on his face. "He has something in store for all of us." A quirk apprehension test. Most of the students said in shock, while Izuku and Katsuki remained calm and firm. "What about the ceremony and the guidance counselor meeting? Shouldn't we be doing that and not be here?" Ochako couldn't help but ask as she remembered Izuku's words and was wondering for the reason for this. "If you want to be heroes, we don't have time for frilly niceties," Aizawa said as he looked at the students. "You all understand the school's reputation for freedom on campus. Well, that freedom goes for us teachers as well." This made every gulp in fear and anticipation. Softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercise, and seated toe touch. These are all activities you know from middle school. Naturally, he said to them with that same tired look on his face, but Izuku could see the seriousness in his eyes. The country still hasn't gotten around to standardizing those sorts of records or keeping track of average performance levels. Well, that's negligent on part of the MEXD. Aizawa then looked at Katsuki, making the blonde flinch, and said, "But Kugo, how far could you pitch a softball in middle school?" 67 meters, sensei, the blonde said as if he was a soldier, which Aizawa nods to. "Good. You're making progress," Aizawa said as he then threw a softball at the blonde, who quickly caught it. "Try using your quirk this time around. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything you do is fine." Suddenly, Katsuki gained a grin on his face as he held the ball hard. "Lucky day. I've been in a bad mood recently." He then walked over to the circle as he put the ball on the ground and began squatting as he produced some sweat. He then stood up straight with the ball in hand. "Don't hold back." Katsuki then went into a pitching throw as he then reeled in his throwing arm back. "You got it. Howitzer." Boom. Demon killer. Katsuki yelled as he threw the ball, and with a powerful explosive blast, the softball went soar in the sky while a shockwave occurred around him that his classmates felt it. Killer? Those who don't know Katsuki thought. Aizawa then watched the ball land on the ground as he let out a hum and said, "Before anything else, one must know what they are capable of." He then showed the class his phone and said, "This is a rational metric that will form your basis of your Hero Foundation. 973.8 meters. Awesome. That looks fun. 973 meters? Unreal. That almost broke the sound barrier. We can finally use our quirks now. That's the Department of Heroics for you." "Shit!" Izuku thought in panic, which Katsuki felt as well as they noticed the annoyance in Aizawa's eyes. "It looks fun, you say?" he said in a cold tone which made the students flinch. "So, you were planning to spend your 3 years here, having a good old time? What happening to becoming a hero? This is bad." Both Izuku and Katsuki thought as they feel the atmosphere around them feel cold. "All right then. In that case, the student who ranks last in total points will be judged hopeless and instantly expelled." Izuku then felt something around his arm as he looked to see Frida holding his arm in nervousness. "Zuku," she said in a shaky tone. "Just hold on," he said in an assuring tone. "Our freedom means we disperse with students as we please," Aizawa said as he then has his hand in his hair. He then slicks it back to give the students a good look at his cold eyes and the grin that accompanies it. "Welcome to the Department of Heroics." X. In Kyoto, Japan, Saitama could be seen in an apartment as he set down a cup of noodles on the table with hot water already in it. He rubbed his hand with a smile on his face and said, "Itadakimasu." "Ring, ring." Saitama then blinked as he looked beside him to see his phone on the table ringing. He picked it up and pressed it on his ear. "Hello?" he asked. "Hello, Saitama." The bald man heard the familiar voice and smiled. "Ah, All Might." He then used his shoulder to support his phone as he grabbed a pair of chopsticks that he kept on the side. "What are you calling?" "You know what class Aizawa the homeroom teacher is to, right?" Saitama heard as he then split the chopsticks as he puts in the cup. "Shoto?" "Yeah." Saitama then ate some, chewing for a bit and swallowing it. He is the homeroom teacher for Class 1A, why do you ask? Well, young Midoriya and his friends are part of his class. The bald man was surprised by this as his eyes widened. "Well, shit. I hope they can keep themselves under pressure alongside the rest of their classmates." "I hope so too." Saitama then waited as All Might pause for a bit. "Also, can you give me some teaching advice?" "Oh, come on." Saitama yelled in annoyance as All Might just chuckles at this before Saitama hangs up and lets out a sigh. He then grabbed his chopsticks and ate his cup of noodles, making him feel a bit better. X. The kid who ranked last gets expelled? This is our first day here. But even it wasn't that's just too unreasonable. Izuku just listens to some of the students complaining from this while he feels Frida tightening her hold on his arm. Natural disasters, Aizawa said as he let his hair down. Massive accidents. Ego-mad villains. All kinds of calamities can happen when we least expect it. Japan's now positively drenched in unreasonable. And it's our jobs as heroes to reverse it all and restore reason. If you were counting on a friendly chat at the local McDonald's after school, that's too bad. From now on, you will expect from your life at UA is one hardship after the next. Aizawa then gave them a smile and said, "This is plus ultra. I expect you to overcome these trials and climb to the top." Now some of the students gained determined looks. Some were nervous, and some hide their emotions well. "This is it," Izuku thought with a serious look on his face as he looked to see Katsuki grinning in anticipation, while he looked to his side and saw her having a look of determination, but there was a hint of nervousness. Now then, that was a demonstration. Aizawa said to them, "Time to step up to plate. X, Trial 1, 50-meter dash." Some highlights of this test were Ida getting 3.04 seconds with his engine quirk, while Tsuazui, a young woman with the ability of a frog, got a time of 5.58 seconds. Nessa's Ochako getting 7.15 seconds with her zero-gravity quirk, while Ojiro Mashireo, a young man whose quirk is a muscular tail, gets a time of 5.49 seconds. Then Yuga Aoyama, a young man with a quirk that lets him fire a laser from his belly button with the help of a custom belt, getting 5.51 seconds, while Mina Ishido, a pink-skinned girl with a quirk that lets her create acid, gets 5.47 seconds. Other students eventually get their turn, till it was now Izuku's and Katsuki's turn. Both childhood friends were standing by the starting line as they readied themselves. "I hope you eat dust Deku," the blonde taunted the green-haired teen who merely scoffed. "Let's see who gets to eat it when I get there first," he said before the two of them glared at each other competitively. Then the two of them heard a bang, and they quickly reacted. Blast Rush. Storm Runner. Katsuki blasted himself forward by having his palms facing behind him, while Izuku started in a low stance and ran with his head ahead from the rest of his body. Minus 3.45. Slash 3.44. Ha! Suck it, nerd. Katsuki taunts Izuku, who simply glared at him. It was then Frida's turn as she looks at her partner for this test. It was a young woman with brown skin and long blonde hair tied up into two braids and a black cattail with a faded white tip. Other than that, everything is obscured, except the legs, by a closed dark yellow hooded jacket that is over the top of the gym uniform. The pull tab of the jacket resembles a big red cat paw, while the hoodie obscured her face in shadows, leaving only a pair of red beady eyes and an ever-constant toothy grin. Yellow patches on her hood, resembling cat ears, and bulky long sleeves that resembles cat paws with yellow pads, resembling the pads on a cat's paw. "Hello." Frida greeted her as her test partner, then looked at her as the girl's smile seems to widen. "Hello. Tao's name is Tao." The girl introduced herself. Frida Jaeger. "Get ready, you two," Aizawa said to them as the two girls then readied themselves, both of them ready to run. The two of them heard a bang and they took off. Tao ran on all fours, doing powerful strides as she approaches the end of the track. Whoosh! Naya! Tao looked surprised to see Frida running past her with great efficiency. Minus 4.17. Slash 4.21. Yahoo! Frida cheered after she stopped running. Then Tao appeared by her side as she looked amazed and said, "Wow! Shiro-chan runs faster than Tao Naya. Mama is retired soldier. Train my brother and me. Both strong," Frida said proudly as she puffs her chest and smirks before blinking to what she said. "Shiro." White hair. "So, Shiro," Tao said as Frida blinks before letting out a chuckle. "Well, that's another friend she made," Izuku said with a smile on his face as he and Katsuki saw this. Katsuki scoffed at this and said, "I bet she will be befriending the rest of the class after this." Izuku chuckles as they then go to the next test. X. Trial 2. Grip Strength Test. The students were then recording their grip strength with handheld devices that they had to grip hard to get their results. While some are all right with the current best of 540 kilograms by Mizo Shoji. Crack! Ha! Beat you in a landslide. Izuku gloated as he got in 250 kilograms, while Katsuki scowls as he just gets a normal score. "Those two are really competitive with each other," Ochako commented. "Zuku, Verdammer Yunga, and I were friends since childhood," Frida explained as Ochako looked at her in confusion. Verdamn what? It's Blast Boy in German. The two of them looked toward their classmate who spoke. It was a tall teenage girl with a mature physique. She has long black hair, generally tied into a spiky ponytail with a large strand hanging on the right side of her face. Her eyes are big yet sharp, dark in color, and paired with short eyebrows set in a determined expression. You know German? Frida asked the girl. Ich have versucht. The girl responded in German, which made Frida smile. Momo then returned to talk in her native tongue and offered her hand. My name is Momo, Yayarosa Momo. Frida Jaeger. Frida said as she took the offered hand as the two of them shook them. I hope we could be friends. I hope so as well, Momo responded back before everyone moved on to the next test. X. Trial 3. Standing long jump. Fuck. I should have timed that better. Izuku yelled as he was near the end of the sand pit. He could have made it if he didn't do his thunderclap move early. Ha ha ha. Suck it, nerd. Katsuki gloats as he made it all the way along with some of the class, with Frida landing 2/3 of the pit. X. Trial 4. Sustained side jumps. Ha! Ah! Izuku was about a gloat of lasting longer than Katsuki. Even better than Mineta Minoru, a short-stacked young man with purple hair, but his gloating broke his focus, and he fell over. Zuku. Frida called out in worry as she ran up to her green-haired friend. Hee. Katsuki said with a smirk on his face as he watched this. X. Trial 5. Pitch throw. It was then the pitch throw as each student then took turns throwing, with the best being Ochako, throwing her ball with her quirk, which endlessly floats through the air, giving her an infinity result. Izuku whistled from this as he watches the ball keep going and going through the sky. Well, that is something anyone will not beat anytime soon, the verdant teen said. Yeah, Frida said in agreement. Midoriya, your turn. Aizawa called out to him. Well, it's my turn then, Izuku said as he walked over the circle. The ball was then tossed to him as he took some deep breaths. Nearly 1,000. Izuku muttered before a grin appeared on his face. Then I'll surpass that. The verdant teen casually tosses the ball upwards as it then falls. Swish. Bang. Izuku then spins his body and hits the ball with the tips of his toes. The ball then began to spin in the air as Izuku then faced it with his arms crossed on his chest. Ha! Izuku then screamed as he spread out his arms, and everyone watches the ball spinning faster as it was picking up dust. Storm. Izuku then reeled in his fist as his eyes focused on the spinning ball. Bang! Boom! Cannon! The verdant then punched the airborne ball with all of his might, which sent it zooming in the air as it created a powerful shockwave and keeps going in the distance. Aizawa then hums as he then showed everyone Izuku's result. Well, you've shown some improvement unlike last time. 1,143.8 meters. Yeah. Izuku cheered. Fuck. Katsuki cursed. All right, get off the circle, Aizawa said as he then reset the recorder. Oh, and have your muscles checked later. What do you mean by AH? My arm hurts. Izuku was about to ask when he suddenly felt his right arm stiffen like a rock, and he felt the pain from it. Izuku. Frida cried out in worry as she ran up to him. Some of the class felt worried as well, but they didn't know what to do. Let me help. Both Izuku and Frida then looked to see someone had approached them. It was a young girl with short blue hair with bangs framing her face, large blue eyes, a constant calm look on her face, and a petite figure. Can you? Frida asked. It won't heal, but would ease the pain, the girl said to them. As long as I don't feel it, it's fine. Izuku screamed. Please do, Aizawa said in annoyance. The girl then hovered her hands over Izuku's injured arm as she closed her eyes with great focus and said, Asclepius. Both Izuku and Frida then watched as the girl's palms glow over Izuku's injured arm as Izuku groans in pain while the girl maintains her focus. The girl then eventually stops as Izuku blinks as he felt his throwing arm, and it didn't hurt anymore. Whoa, Izuku said as he looks at his right hand and flexes fingers. How did you do that? It is my quirk status, which lets me apply temporary status conditions to others, the girl explained to him. Like in Pokemon? He asked as the girl nods. Yes. But I have more varieties for various situations. What I just gave you was Asclepius, or pain nullification. That's cool. I'm Frida, by the way. Frida Jaeger. Frida, introduce herself. Lele Lalina. The girl introduced herself as well. Jaeger, you're up. Aizawa called out to the white-haired girl. Kay! Frida then ran to the circle and was waiting for the ball to be tossed to her, but she looks to see that Aizawa didn't throw at her yet. Ball, please. I hope you use your quirk here, he said before tossing the ball to her. I had a few words of your guardians, and I also know about that. Frida then pales a bit as she gulps and said, H-high. What the fuck are they talking about? Katsuki whispered to Izuku with suspicion. I don't know either, Izuku said as he looks at Frida in worry. Frida looks anxious for a moment before she took a deep breath and gained a determined look on her face. Everyone then watches as black smoke gathered around Frida's right hand before she swings her arm forward and her gun appeared in her hand. Frida then tosses the ball in the air and took aim. Bang, 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 bang. Frida shot out 6 bullets at the ball, each shot sending it further away. But it doesn't end there. Frida then held her gun with both of her hands as black smoke surrounds her gun as sweat drips from her forehead. Then red electricity surrounds her gun, which travels to the end of the barrel, as Frida looked at the ball in the distance before pressing the trigger. Boom! Frida was then blown away as she fired a bullet made from red energy, which hits the ball in the air and sends it even further away. Frida? Izuku called out to his female friend, who was laying on the ground, while Aizawa looked at his phone. Good thing we bought those softballs made from leather from cows with fireproof quirks, he said out loud before showing everyone Frida's result. 721.3 meters. Sweet. Frida said as she sat up with a smile on her face, but then grimaces as she looked to see that her right hand was bruised. She then looked beside her, to see her gun disappearing in black smoke. Are you all right? Izuku asked in worry as Frida looked at him with a pained smile. Can still go, she said to him in an assured tone. ICHWLO, Jory. Frida then held her head in pain, which worried Izuku. Are you sure? He asked. Ja, let's go, there's more tests, Frida said as she stood up and walked to join the others while Izuku continues to feel worried. Aizawa hums as he watches Frida joining the others with stagger in her step. But he also notices hints of black smoke from the top of her head. I better tell her about this. X. Trial 6. Endurance Run. The next test was simple, thou with quirks. It wasn't. Momo blew away the competition when she made a motor scooter with her body, which also has a solar charger. Katsuki and Izuku were in 2nd and 3rd respectively, which the blonde bragged about, while Frida was in 7th. X. Trial 7. Seated toe touch. Again, it was simple with Izuku and Katsuki getting a tie while the others either do good or bad, with Frida being the former. X. Trial 8. Sit-ups. This is where Izuku and Katsuki were now trying to one-up each other to break the tie between them, but it eventually ended with Katsuki winning due to Izuku feeling his right arm stiffening again, which made the verdant teen scream and stop, which Lele stopped after not finishing more than the 2. X. Time to present the results, Aizawa said as everyone lined up with some feeling worried. The total is simply the aggregate sum of your scores. If I recited all your scores, I'll take 1,000,000 years, so I'll disclose them all at once. Everyone then held back their breaths in anticipation. 1. Yairo Momo. 2. Todoroki Shoto. 3. Bakugo Katsuki. 4. Midoriya Izuku. 5. Ida Tenya. 6. Tokoyami Fumikage. 7. Shoji Mizo. 8. Frida Jaeger. 9. Ojiro Mashireo. 10. Kirishima Ijiro. 11. Ashido Mina. 12. Yurariko Ochako. 13. Takaka. 14. Kodakoji. 15. Sada Rikido. 16. Azuri Tsuyu. 17. Oscar Pine. 18. Aoyama Yuga. 19. Sirohana. 20. Kaminari Denki. 21. Jiro Kyoka. 22. Hagakure Toru. 23. Lele Lalina. 24. Mineta Minoru. Oh, yeah. I was lying about expelling anyone. Aizawa added as shit-eating grin appeared on his face. It was a logical ruse to pull out your best performances. EHHH. Most of the students shouted in disbelief. Oh, come on, guys, use your brains. Of course, it's a ruse, Momo said. Like hell it is. I remember this asshole telling us how he expelled a student last year and re-enrolled him just so he could give them a fucking reality check. Katsuki yelled while pointing at Aizawa, which shocked the other students, except Izuku, who has his arms crossed. The flames crackle. The sound of women and children screaming echo through the streets, now devoid of life. The sound of the buildings around me crumbling. The sound of those monsters, the Nomu, growing nearer. They're all drowned out by the ringing in my ears. Live, live, live. Only a single thought dominates my mind as I run forward, past the bodies of pro heroes and civilians alike, as I attempt to survive this awful nightmare. I almost convince myself that I'd just wake up in bed, get ready for a miserable day at work, and everything would be fine. But then I remember a man who thought the same thing, just before he jumped out of the office window. That man, who was now lying splattered on the pavement, was my evil and abusive boss who worked me to near death every day. And now the dreams, ideals, memories, the entire existence of that horrible man is burned onto one single image in my brain. A single image of a body in a pool of blood. That's all he is now. I don't want to end up like that. I turn down an alleyway to escape the death that has caught the people near me and come out onto a main street. The sky is blanketed in black smoke, the horizon a fiery orange. Crashed cars litter the street and rubble from all the chaos of the fight. Whatever pro heroes who haven't died are slowly being picked off, one by one. And then I spotted her. A young girl, probably no more than 8 years old, is clutching a teddy bear in her left hand while trying to shake her parent awake with her other hand. Either she doesn't realize her father is dead, or she doesn't want to. I was caught off guard by this sight and momentarily stopped moving, only to see a Nomu come up behind her to finish off the last of her bloodline. She turns around, thick streams of tears coming out of her eyes, screaming in both fear and despair. And before I even had time to process the situation, my foot was already pushing off the pavement. My body moved on its own, the instinct of survival long gone, as I sought to protect the child in front of me. I pushed her out of the way as hard as I could, just barely grazing the Nomu's fist as it got stuck in the wall of the building. But that's all it took. I'm comforting the girl, telling her it'll be all right, and then she looks at me and screams. On the ground behind her is my arm, still leaking blood. The adrenaline in my body kept me from feeling the pain, but not that I'd notice it. It hurt like hell. The Nomu is free and getting ready to chase us, so I lead the little girl into the alleyway and through a fence, closing and barricading the door behind her. "What are you doing, mister?" The girl yells as I turn away from her. Mustering all the fake courage I can, I wave her off and tell her to run away before stepping back out onto the main street with one goal: distraction. The number of Nomus in the street has escalated, from only one being stuck in a wall to 8 or 10 getting ready to pummel me. I have to protect that little girl. With that, I find myself running in circles trying to outpace the chasing Nomu. Their snarls, combined with the sound of them crashing into cars and buildings around me, cause the adrenaline to pump harder, fueling my every movement. But adrenaline can only get me so far as my weak body gives out on me, my legs buckling underneath me and sending me to the pavement with a hard crash. Within a single second, the Nomu are already on top of me, punching and stomping on me relentlessly. I'm already dead to rights, and yet they don't kill me, almost like their only goal is to cause suffering. Blood spews out my mouth, drowning out my screams. Bloody tears escape from my eyes as my vision finally begins to fade. And then I hear a woman yell out from somewhere my right. "Hey, shitheads. Pick on someone your own size," the woman yells. Suddenly, a flash of white kicks the Nomu off of me and into a nearby building, causing the apartment complex to collapse. The woman approached me with a grim look on her face. It takes all my energy to turn my eyes to look at her, but it's worth it. One of my favorite heroes, the rabbit hero, Mirko, her beautiful, light brown skin clash against her white outfit and white hair. Her usual smug grin replaced by a mix of sadness and anger. The tips of her rabbit ears are practically resting on the top of her head, showing her sadness. I was fighting Nomu when a girl came running up to me, yelling about some man who saved her. Was it you? I tried to speak, but the words died in my dry mouth, so I just nodded my head weakly. You did good. You were too weak to take on the Nomu, and yet you still saved that girl. You should be proud. Mirko looked away in shame at the sight of me coughing up blood. All of a sudden, pleas for help echoed through the streets, a group of survivors yelling desperately for salvation. Mirko's ears shot up at the sound before she looked down at me. Go! Be a hero, I said weakly. She nodded before a look of anger and determination appeared on her face as she jumped away. And then I was alone, dying in a puddle of my blood in the street, like roadkill. A pathetic ending fitting the pathetic life I lived. Being born quirkless in a world of superpowers means you don't get many chances to rise on the social ladder. Years of bullying from everyone around me made me weak and insecure. My dreams of being a hero died when I entered that office building for an interview. My days were spent at my desk, mindlessly typing away at my keyboard while my asshole boss yelled at me constantly. Time seemed to slow down in that instant as memories from my life began to play in front of me like a movie. Memories of being bullied in school, the adults turning a blind eye because of my quirklessness. Whenever I would come home, my mom would be there waiting for me. And every day she would burst out crying and hugging me when she saw the bruises on my body and face. I have a distinct memory of my mother breaking down in the kitchen when she thought I had already left for school. Seeing her love and sadness gave me mixed emotions. But what happened next nearly broke me completely. What I saw next was a memory of my mother's final words at night before she slipped into a coma. She said to me, Katsu, I love you so much. Live on for me, okay? Whenever a loved one dies in a movie, the protagonist gets to say one last final goodbye before they die. But I didn't get that. She died the next week in her coma. After that, I kind of just shuffled through life. I wasn't particularly smart or athletic, so I ended up barely getting through school. I got a job in an office I hated, worked for a manager who worked me to death every day, and went home to an empty, cramped, dark apartment, devoid of any love. I spent my life depressed and isolated from everyone, and that's how I'll die, sad and alone, with no achievements to my name, or anyone who would even bother to go to my funeral. If anyone even finds my body, as my vision finally fades, I prepare myself for death and finally stop breathing. Thump, thump, thump. The rhythm of my heart begins to slow down. My breathing stops and my eyes shut. My body is left without enough energy to even close my mouth. What the hell? What is this crap? What was it all for? A tear begins to stream down my face. My vision all but gone by this point. I didn't do anything with my life. All I did was just stumble my way through, half dead. My soul has been dead for a long time now. A sudden thought comes to my mind, and the tears begin to flow even harder. Who is even going to show up to my funeral? It was over. My disgustingly empty existence was finally going to end. And then something appeared before me. It shone no light, and yet, looking back on it now, it was the brightest thing in the world. A blue box with a message for me. A delusion before death? Perhaps my mind was finally succumbing to death? The secret quest has been completed. The reward for completing this quest is a job change. Current job, none. Your heart will stop beating in 0.3 seconds. Would you like to accept the job change? Underneath the strange message were two boxes, one with yes and the other with no. I decided to humor my near-death delusion and accepted the offer. The words disappeared, being replaced by new words, although I would never see them. Congratulations on gaining the system, activating the first quest. With that, the box disappears, and I'm alone, floating in a dark void. And then I lay my soul to rest and pray I have a quirk in my next life. Katsuo woke up in his bed to an excruciating pain in his right arm and chest. It felt like he had been beaten to death over and over again, only to still be alive to feel even more pain. But as quickly as the pain began, it ended soon after, and Katsuo was left trying to catch his breath. Katsuo peeled off the covers on his bed to inspect his body. His missing arm was now reattached to his body, which was perfectly fine now, still slightly shaking. Katsuo returned to his senses and examined his surroundings. He recognized it instantly. It was his childhood bedroom, complete with posters and action figures of his favorite heroes. I threw all of that crap out when I moved out, though. How am I here? The last thing Katsuo remembered was that he died, and now he was in his childhood home. Katsuo figured it was him reliving a memory before he passed on. Well, I might as well take a look around before I die for real. He got out of bed and switched out of his pajamas before making his way to the door. As the door creaked open, however, the delicious smell of Western-style bacon and eggs dominated his sense of smell. It caught him off guard. Who's in my house? Who could be making brea? It hit him. He checked the calendar on the wall, which showed the day's date. March 2nd, 2137. Exactly 10 years before the city was attacked. Which means Katsuo slowly crept out of his room, tiptoeing over to the kitchen. As he got closer, he could hear the sound of someone humming, almost angelically in Katsuo's ears. He rounded the corner and found himself staring at a woman in his kitchen. She had long, silky black hair that reached halfway down her back and was wearing an apron with a pink shirt underneath. The sun was shining through the window at just the right angle for Katsuo to see her face so clearly. It was his mother, who had died a year ago from now, was standing in front of him making a delicious breakfast. Mom. She turned around, facing her son with a smile. Good morning, Katsuo. Did you sleep well? Ms. Hiroki was caught off guard by her son, who began smothering her in a bear hug. She was about to question his sudden bout of affection when she heard the sound of him sniffling. She shushed him gently, rubbing his back. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? Her kind words were met with even more tears. Yeah, something like that. After letting go of his mother, albeit reluctantly, they enjoyed a nice, warm breakfast before Katsuo left the house. It was a Saturday morning, so there wouldn't be school for the next 2 days, giving him the perfect opportunity to take a look around his old neighborhood. That's where Hirota Orochi and his gang of dumbass beat him up. There, too. And there. That was their favorite spot over there. Man, this is depressing. Katsuo cut his walk down memory lane short and just decided to sit on a bench in the park, which overlooked the river. It was yet another place he had been beaten up. What am I doing here? What's the point of showing me all this? My mother is going to die. My bullies will continue to beat me for years to come, and there's nothing I can do about it. Might as well just kill me now. As the dark thoughts slowly began to swirl inside his head once more, something caught his eye. A blue box with white letters was in front of him. It was real. A quest has been activated. Title, Ties That Bind. Quest type, normal. Description. The system has chosen you to inherit the power of a god, but first you must overcome the ties that bind you to the ground. First objective, save your mother's life. Reward, 2,000 experience points. The result of failure, Hiroki Emiko's death. Time limit, 33 days. Katsuo stared at the words in front of him for a few moments. There were a few people in the park, and yet none of them seemed to notice the screen that appeared from nowhere. This system had brought about a few revelations. One, this was not a memory. Nothing like this had happened the first time around. Second, the system was powerful enough to send him back in time, meaning those experience points were going to come in handy for something. Third, there was a chance his mother could be saved. Katsuo took a moment to ponder that thought for a moment. Katsuo had the chance to save his mother. Who wouldn't take that opportunity? After a few more minutes of examining the window, he looked away, automatically closing it. Convenient. Katsuo was now back at the house, looking at his mother watching TV while thinking. Let's examine this problem. In 1 year, my mother is diagnosed with brain cancer, and a year later, she dies of it. I can't let that happen. After thoroughly examining the situation, Katsuo comes up with the best plan he could. Bullshit his way into convincing his mother to go to the doctor. But what should he say? That he awakened a quirk that allows him to smell cancer? That might work. Okay, let's try that. Katsuo tried his best to act normally, but he was no one's actor. Fortunately, his mother was engrossed in a soap opera or something. Hey, Mom, I think I might have developed a quirk. Katsuo waited with bated breath as he watched his mom slowly turn to him before jumping up and hugging him while crying. "My baby, I'm so happy for you." Katsuo looked down in subtle disgust as his mom's snot was getting all over his shirt, but he let it slide because she was so awesome. "So what is it?" she asked, looking at him with a smile on his face. Katsuo cleared his throat before speaking. "I can sniff out cancer." Katsuo waited for his mother's reaction. She was confused at first, but that look soon changed to one of joy. "That's awesome. You can help so many people with that. Now for the hard part. The thing is, after I discovered this new quirk of mine, your smell changed." Ms. Hiroki's smile faded. "Oh," was all she could say as she sat back down. "Mom, you need to go to the doctor." Ms. Hiroki looked up at her son. His face was dead serious, and his eyes were full of both sadness and determination. Ms. Hiroki believed in her son greatly, so she took his words to heart and went to the doctor, with Katsuo following her. Soon, they were at the hospital, and the doctors began examining Ms. Hiroki. The wait was maddening. Katsuo must have spent 2 hours waiting in the lobby. He couldn't stop shaking. The time limit to save his mother's life was 33 days. But why? Was that when the cancer would become deadly? Maybe the system was even real, and it was just some kind of hallucination. But even so, that theory doesn't explain the whole time travel ordeal. Katsuo wanted to test something, so he whispered, "System, open." As he did, the window opened up again. "It's here. It's still here." I guess learning about this thing is the best way to take my mind off of the current situation. There were different buttons on the screen that led to different sections of the system. However, most of the functions seemed to be locked, the only exceptions being the quest list and the inbox. I swear, if this thing starts asking for my credit card information. Katsuo examined the inbox first. The only message present was the one that popped up before he died. It seemed the quest alerts were part of the quest tab, so Katsuo checked there next. 3 tabs on the side of the window read active quests, side quests, and finished quests. The current active quest was Ties That Bind, with a time limit of now 32 days. Ample time to complete this quest, I suppose. There were no side quests, but what caught Katsuo's eyes was a finished quest. Quest title, Returner's Trial. Quest type, secret. Description, only he who is worthy may inherit the power of Ibris. While your body may be weak, the soul of a hero can still rest inside of you. Prove that you can be a hero and that the power to save people is yours. Reward, the system. The result of failure, death. Ibris? The strange name was foreign to Katsuo, so he jotted down a mental note to do some research about it later. What caught his eye, however, was a clear condition set by the system. Prove that you can be a hero. After reviewing the final moments before his death, he came up with a reason for being chosen. I may be wrong, but I think helping out that girl despite being weak and quirkless proved that I had a heroic soul. After closing the window, Katsuo looked at the time. It was still only 2:30 p.m. Barely half a day had passed, and yet it felt like it was years. As he finished that thought, the doctor came into the lobby and called Katsuo's name. After confirming his presence, the doctor led Katsuo to one of the rooms, where his mom was sitting down in a chair with a puzzling look on her face. I can tell she isn't sad or scared, but it feels like she's worried about something. The doctor pulled out his laptop and read something on it before turning to Katsuo. "Well, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is we found a cancerous tumor in your mother's brain." Katsuo tried his best to look surprised, but he didn't have to act sad. The memory of this happening a year from now was burned into his memory. "You said there was a good news?" Katsuo asked, praying to whoever up there would listen that he was successful. His prayers were answered. "The good news, though, is that your quirk caught the cancer early. It's small and benign, and our scans show that there are only 3 spots. With a quick surgery, your mother will be good as new." As Katsuo was processing these words, a notification from the system appeared off to the side. "Quest completed. Claim the reward in your inbox when you are ready." Just barely remembering he was in a hospital, Katsuo kept the noise to a minimum while he celebrated. After calming himself down, the doctor proceeded to speak again. Because of the location of the tumors and their benign status, the surgery will only cost around $30,000. And just like that, everything clicked for him. His mother wasn't scared because she knew she could get the surgery, but she was still worried because of the cost. Ms. Hiroki looked at her son with a guilty expression that said, "Please forgive my selfishness." This look was promptly returned with a determined smile and a thumbs up. The two Hirokis, now feeling relieved of their stress, returned home with a scheduled appointment for the surgery the following Tuesday. When they got home, it was Ms. Hiroki's turn to give her son a bear hug while crying. "Thank you so much, baby. If it weren't for you, I might not have found that cancer in time. You're my hero." Katsuo simply smiled and hugged her back before telling her to get some rest. The day's stress had accumulated, and they both needed to take an 8-hour breather. After his mother was tucked away in bed for the night, Katsuo retreated to his own bedroom. That bedroom, which used to hold the memories of him crying into his blanket after his mom died, was once again a place of relaxation and safety for him. As he got down into his bed to sleep, he remembered the notification from the hospital room talking about checking his inbox. It's whatever. I'll check it first thing in the morning. Just gotta sleep. And with that final thought, Katsuo drifted off into slumber. It was the first time in a while that no nightmares found him. His dream was peaceful, but things were not going to be easy from then on. Beep, 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 beep. The sound of his alarm clock wakes Katsuo up to a beautiful Sunday morning, but he's having none of it. In a half-awake stupor, he reaches for the wall socket, unplugs his alarm clock, and throws it at the pillow he taped to the wall yesterday for this exact moment. For the next minute or so, Katsuo just sat on the side of the bed, staring at the wall while thinking of nothing in particular. I should get moving now. That morning was normal, or at least it would have been if Katsuo wasn't from the future. Even so, he was able to enjoy a hearty meal with his mother before departing for the morning. It was a lazy Sunday morning, and after everyone was at their jobs, the streets quieted down, or at least as much as they could in the city. After going back to park and sitting back down on the same bench from before, Katsuo opened the inbox and took a look inside. Just as the system had said the day before, a new message appeared at the top of the list, titled Important. After clicking on it, a new window opened with the following message. Now that you are accustomed to the quest system, it is time to unlock a new feature, the player menu. This menu will allow you to view your current stats, your current progress toward leveling up, your equipped items, skills, as well as the amount of system coins you have. After claiming your experience points, navigate to the player menu to learn about it in greater detail. Okay, that creates more questions than it answered, but let's hope it's able to explain what the coins thing is. After claiming the XP, yet another window opened. It was a level-up screen, telling Katsuo that it leveled up to LV2. At the bottom of the screen, it showed what rewards Katsuo had earned from leveling up. Unfortunately, the only thing he had gotten was the player menu. After finding his way back to the main menu and pressing the button labeled Player, which also seemed to have a silhouette of his face on it, multiple arrows connected to various boxes appeared across the screen. Stat Chart displays your current strength in multiple categories. These categories include strength, endurance, agility, intelligence, and perception. Every stat will rise by 5 points after every time the player levels up. Skill List. This shows all of the skills available to the player. A skill is a special attack that does more damage than a basic attack. Skills can be used in combination with other skills, creating combo moves. All skills have varying amounts of mana and cooldown needed to use them. Unlock skills by either defeating bosses or unlocking them through job change quests. Progress Bar shows the amount of experience needed to level up, as well as the current amount of experience accumulated in numbers. Below those numbers is a bar that indicates how close the player is to leveling up. Job. Owning a job unlocks certain skills for the player to acquire, as well as boost stats without using stat points. A job change quest will need to be completed before the player can accept the job. Weapon slots. 2 weapons can be equipped at one time, allowing them to be summoned out of the air when needed. Now that you have learned about the player menu and everything included within, it is time to learn about how to efficiently level up. There are a few methods. 1. When someone asks for help, a quest will be generated with the parameters to complete the quest. This method rewards small experience. 2. Completing boss quests. The quest will require that you defeat an enemy much stronger than you. This rewards high amounts of experience. 3. Clear scenarios. Scenarios will unlock as level up and can be used to kill monsters for experience. The higher level scenarios have stronger monsters that grant more experience upon killing them. With that, the system finally stops showing messages and allows Katsuo to take a breather. That was a lot of information at once. Time to experiment. Getting off the bench, he made his way back to the house, taking a kitchen knife out of the drawer and holding it in his hand while opening the player menu. As he pressed the plus sign on one of the weapon slots, a list of available weapons appeared, with the only one being the kitchen knife. I hate to be that guy, but I hope I won't have to use this. I'll just keep it here for now. As he confirmed the knife as his weapon, he disappeared from his hand, vanishing into thin air. Dumbfounded, he looked to see if he dropped it, only for it to appear back in his hand when he wanted it back. After that interesting display, Katsuo resigned himself to the couch where he thought of his next move. I absolutely need to get stronger before tomorrow. What's the best way to level up again? Remembering the answer, Katsuo opens up the Scenarios tab and takes a look inside. All of the scenarios have been grayed out, except for one that reads Player the Dead. There's no description, no difficulty level, no suggested power level, just a start button. Desperate for XP and willing to try anything, Katsuo grips the knife in his hand and presses the button that would change his life forever. Now beginning scenario, Player the Dead. The feeling of being transported into the scenario was strange. Katsuo's eyes grew heavy, and as closed them, he could feel the air around him change. It felt colder and musty, like how the house smelled when he and his mom returned from vacation. He opened his eyes, revealing his house changed into a storage room. The shelves were bare, only showing off junk he had no use for. Suddenly, he noticed a man across the room, bent over eating something like he hadn't eaten in days. With no other options, he approached. "Excuse me, sir, could I get some E-?" Katsuo was speechless. He couldn't see what the man was eating due to the darkness of the room, but now that his eyes adjusted, he saw the body of a female office worker, her cold, dead eyes bearing into Katsuo's soul. What the hell, Dash? He was once again cut off by the man, or rather, the monster jumping on top of him, attempting to rip him open like the poor woman across the room. Ragagaha. An incoherent mess of gargles and beastly yelling escaped from the man's torn open jaw. His eyes were glassy and lifeless. His stomach was also torn open, with his intestinal tract falling out like a snake. Coming to a sudden realization about his problem, Katsuo summoned the knife back into his hand and drove into the side of the monster's head, a sickening schlick coming from a now limp monster above him. Breathing heavily, Katsuo threw the body off of him, standing up and nearly barfing when he got a look at the blood all over him. After the sight mixed with the smell, however, he couldn't take it anymore and threw up his hearty breakfast. After cleansing both his stomach and soul, Katsuo looked up to an alert from the system. He had gained XP from killing the zombie and leveled up. It felt strange, like his body had gotten lighter and his mind clearer. He punched the air in front of him, noticing his punch fell heavier. As he was about to test his jump height, he heard more snarls coming from the ground. He looked at the man, whose mouth wasn't moving. Horrified, he looked at the woman, who was getting up while staring at him. Ah, damn it. The woman lunged at him as well, but one simple swing with the knife had cut halfway through her head this time, getting wedged inside. He was stronger now. After wiggling the knife loose, his sudden urge to release even more of his breakfast is interrupted by the system giving him more XP for killing the office lady. However, it wasn't enough to advance. If I want to level up, I need to kill more of those things. They're not human. They are not human. After reassuring himself, he slowly opens a creaky door and looks outside. He's in an abandoned office building. The whole place is in disarray, with cubicles destroyed and doors broken down, seemingly by the undead monstrosities plaguing this world. Katsuo's attention is immediately brought to the broken window. Walking over and looking outside, Katsuo's heart drops. It's not just this building or the neighborhood. The zombies are roaming around as far as the eye can see. Down below in the street, Katsuo witnesses a car crash in the road. A survivor gets out of the car, only to be surrounded and devoured by the horde, alerted by the sound of the crash. By the time the zombies are finished, the man has turned into one of them, stumbling his way in no certain direction. Behind him, a little girl crawls out of the car and then runs out of sight. Oh my God, where the hell am I? As if to answer his question, the system window opens in front of him. The world of the dead. The world has succumbed to a zombie-creating virus. While they're easily outmaneuvered by themselves, the hordes have proved to be extremely dangerous, overwhelming the world's governments and killing 99% of the Earth's population. Objective: kill the undead. Oh God, oh God, oh God. This isn't real, this can't be real. I can't do this. I can't do this. Katsuo pulled up the scenario menu and had his finger above the exit button before he stopped himself. Why was he feeling deja vu? Something like this had happened before, right? Come on, Katsuo, fight back. It was like he was there, standing over the bullies, as they beat him up and spat on him for being quirkless. The bullies hurled insult after insult, kick after kick, until there was nothing left for them to kick. He saw himself begging for Hiroki to spare him, having to give up all of his money just for half the beating. He saw himself crying into his blanket, while he was powerless to save his mother from her cancer. He saw an empty shell of man being yelled at by his boss to work harder, all while the boss just sat at his desk doing nothing particular. He saw a pathetic, quirkless, weak man save a girl from death, despite knowing he would die. He saw that same man, who had been bullied and ridiculed his entire life, be given a second chance. Tears welled up in his eyes. The memories were painful, but they taught him a lesson. I won't be weak. I can't be. If I leave here, let the fear overcome me, then how will I be able to change my useless fate and become a hero? How will I be able to see my mother smile when she's too busy crying over my bruises? I have to be strong so that she and everyone else who dies in the future to those monsters can smile and live. His blood boiled as though backing down now. So Katsuo closed the menu and wiped his tears away, a fire igniting deep in his soul as the system appeared once again. New quest has been activated. Title: Kill Your Fear. Type: Special. There's no time to be weak anymore. In order to preserve the smiles of everyone in the world, you must become the strongest being. Requirement: kill 100 zombies. Reward: new skill. Level up, level up, level up. Notifications of advancement surround Katsuo, heralding death for anything in his way. Determination and a desire to live guide his blade to the heads of the zombies in his way. With every level up, his movements get quicker, his mind gets clearer, leading him to his objective, the Horde, a massive collective of zombies in the city center. Where others would see imminent danger, Katsuo saw an opportunity. He already knew what would happen if he didn't get stronger now. The same thing that happened 10 years from now, a pathetic ending. But he couldn't let that happen now. So he sliced and sliced and sliced until his arm grew tired and his blade grew dull. Level up, level up, level up. The rate at which he was advancing was decreasing. The amount of XP needed simply couldn't be met with simply killing zombies anymore. But he did it. The quest was cleared. The system congratulated him, but he felt something was off, like a piece of him was missing. His innocence. He looked around him. Dead bold eyes were piled up, their blood soaking into the ground. They were already dead, monsters who hunted the innocent, just like the Nomu, but they still looked human, and that bothered Katsuo. Don't think about it. Not yet, seeing that his work was done here. Katsuo returned to the scenario menu and pressed the exit button. He was back in his kitchen. The clock on the wall showed Katsuo that not even 10 minutes had passed. The blood on his clothes and knife was gone, but the knife itself was still heavily damaged. Looks like I owe Mom a new kitchen knife. I'll have to tell her about. As Katsuo fell to the ground and heard his mother coming his way, he came to a realization. Must have been more tired than I thought. Okay, class, settle down now, I'm taking roll. The teacher stands at the front of the classroom, looking at all the students individually to confirm their presence. Hanamura, Hayes, Minami, Hiroki. Wait, Where's Hiroki at? Confused, the teacher begins flipping through his notes, trying to find some kind of absence for him before finally finding it. Ah, yes, I remember now, he's in the hospital. As he returns to taking roll, the class begins whispering to each other excitedly. Things like, "You think he's dead?" Or maybe he finally threw himself out a window, all ended by snickering before coming up with something even worse. The teacher hears this, a look of distaste plaguing his visage before a student speaks up. "Excuse me, sir, but what happened?" He wipes the look of disgust off his face before looking up at the girl who asked him. It's obvious that she, as well as the other students, are hoping that Hiroki never comes back. Children can be so cruel, he thinks to himself before answering her question. He awakened his quirk and worked himself to exhaustion training with it. I don't know. With that, the quiet becomes silent, their hopes of never seeing that quirkless loser dashed. But then, the heckling continues in a new form. Whatever, I bet his quirk is super weak. One girl said. Yeah, I bet all he can do is stretch his fingers or something. Another one said. The look of disgust returned to the teacher's face as he finished roll and began class. Little did anyone know, the school's delinquents were planning something. Who does that little fuck think he is? One of them said, snickering to his friend who responded, We should teach him a lesson, right, Orochi? The two boys turned to their leader, the most feared delinquent in the prefecture, who showed off his wicked grin as he spoke. I don't know about you guys, but I'm itching to beat that little shit's face into the ground. Next time he comes to school, we'll show him who the predators are and who their prey will always be. Katsuo awoke to a white-tiled ceiling, in a bed he didn't recognize. An unfamiliar ceiling? He sat up slowly, taking in his surroundings. He was almost scared he had somehow gone back to the future, but fortunately, that wasn't the case. His hands still looked like those of a teenager. Soon, he noticed his mother beside him, the red around her eyes telling him that she had been crying. While all this information would have been confusing before, Katsuo's newly enhanced intelligence was able to take it all in and process it quickly, coming to the simple conclusion that he had awoken in the hospital. Katsuo nudged his mother awake, who was happy enough to see him alive and well. My baby! The tears began flowing again as Katsuo embraced her, rubbing her back and assuring her that he was fine. Soon, the same doctor from before walked into the room. It pains me to have to see you two so soon, but I believe this meeting is very important. So listen up. The doctor's words caught Katsuo and his mother's attention, who began to worry that something may be wrong. Fortunately, that was also not the case. It seems we were initially wrong about your quirk. While we believe your nose was somehow strong enough to smell cancer, it seems that was only a side effect of what we believe is your real quirk. Full body strengthening. Your 5 senses, as well as your physical prowess, are all boosted, most likely permanently. While this came as a shock to Mrs. Hiroki, Katsuo was more confused about the second part. But how did you know that my body was heightened as well? The doctor, who was looking at his notes, looked back up at Katsuo. For one, you work yourself to near exhaustion after discovering your quirk, so it was half an educated guess. Second, your muscle definition is drastically different from the last time I saw you, most likely because your body needed to get acclimated to your quirk first. I didn't notice it before, but my arms do look a lot more muscular than they did before. Looking down the neck hole of the hospital gown, Katsuo discovered a chiseled six-pack where his ordinary chest used to be. Oh shit. In light of this discovery, I'll need you to go to your local quirk registration building to have your quirk registered. They'll perform a variety of tests for you, so we can see what your quirk is truly like, just in case I was wrong. Before leaving the room, the doctor stopped with his hand on the door handle and turned around. Oh, and make sure not to work yourself to exhaustion again, the doctor said with a smile before leaving the room. Heh, I'll try not to. My quirk is exactly as the doctor said it was. After doing various tests, it was recorded that both my physical and mental capabilities had improved a lot, something that couldn't be done normally in a few days. After registering my quirk and going back home, I fell asleep nearly instantly and didn't wake up until the next morning. It was a day Katsuo had been dreading ever since he got used to the idea of being in the past. Today, Katsuo had to go back to school. If it were 80% of the other kids in the world, it was just a matter of being too lazy to go back. But for Katsuo, it was because he had the worst days of his life in school. He was sure that word of his quirk had already gotten back to the class, and he was probably getting ready to do something stupid. Even so, Katsuo got out of bed and faced the music. He had already decided back in the world of the dead that he wouldn't back down from the challenges ahead of him. The system has detected that the player has not killed Hiroki Orochi. A penalty will now be incurred. However, because the opponent was defeated, his quirk has been turned into a skill for the player's use. With that, the air changed around Katsuo, like when he entered the system. But this time the air wasn't just cold, but lifeless as well. Katsuo was now standing on some sort of black liquid, but it was as hard and flat as glass would be. Despite that, it still rippled when he took a step forward. The horizon was a light gray, with a black ceiling probably hundreds of miles above him. Black ink from the ceiling traveled along the sky, like raindrops before stopping at random places at the top of the horizon, and in front of him, a knight wearing pitch-black armor. Strands of ink were also coming off of the knight's armor, floating into the air before dissipating. As punishment for not killing Hiroki Orochi, the player must now survive for 4 hours against the Death Knight. The knight jumped forward at a high velocity. It wasn't for Katsuo's heightened reaction time and kitchen knife that the knight's sword would have gone clean through his body. However, the blade of Katsuo's knife broke clean off the handle, leaving him with nothing to defend himself with. Shit! Katsuo jumped as far away as possible, but the knife was already on him in seconds. It took a combination of running, jumping, and flipping around the knight just to not die, and yet cuts were still appearing all over his body. Crap, what the hell is with this shitty system? I don't kill one person, and it condemns me to death? What happened to being a hero? If only I could get a weapon to defend myself with. At the thought of getting a weapon, the system sent another message, automatically opening a window to Katsuo's side. Congratulations on unlocking the shop. Go fuck yourself. Katsuo pressed the first thing he saw, a sturdy-looking matte black dagger that cost him 14,000 coins, whatever those were. The knife appeared in his hand instantly, and he used it to block the knight's attack. Even with a sturdy knife that wasn't giving out on him any time soon, the knight's brutal strength drove Katsuo to one knee. Things went on like this for the rest of 4 hours, Katsuo dodging and blocking while the knight remained on the offensive the entire time. Eventually, though, the time ended, and Katsuo's jump landed him on the warm ground, now being covered by the sun. He was broken, bleeding, on the verge of passing out again, but he was happy. He had survived not only his encounter with the bullies who made his life hell for the next several years, but also a Death Knight who could have killed him with one swing. If he had learned anything today, it was that he was stronger and that he could get even stronger, but he also wasn't the strongest. It was a lesson in humility, and Katsuo was grateful for it. Seeing the sun close to its final descent for the day, Katsuo made his way back home, ready for rest and relaxation, but not for the conversation he was to have with his mom about the cuts and bruises. I should find out what happened to Orochi. I know the police probably got him after I left, but it'll be funny to see what other crimes he gets busted for. At the happy thought of seeing Orochi's ugly mug on the evening news, Katsuo saw something strange ahead of him. Under the bridge going over the river was a young boy and some kind of sludge monster. It was clear to anyone with half a brain that the boy was being attacked by the sludge monster, so Katsuo jumped into action. Remember, don't get cocky. He summoned his dagger and used the tight space to his advantage, cutting through the sludge rapidly using the jump barrage skill. After successfully dispatching the villain, Katsuo helped the young boy up. They were the same age, with the boy having green hair and emerald eyes that just screamed insecurity. "You all right?" That looked rough. Looking down in embarrassment, the young boy spoke up. "Why, yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for the help." And then, like some kind of switch flipped in his head, Broccoli had got excited and started rambling into Katsuo's face. "That was so cool. What's your quirk? How did you do that? How dash..." The boy kept firing off questions like a machine gun, and Katsuo tried his best to answer them one by one as fast as he could. "Oh, yeah. My name is Izuku Midoriya. What's yours?" After finally getting the introductions out of the way, Katsuo had a sudden thought. I don't have any friends. And this guy seems cool. Want to be friends? Katsuo asked, smiling widely as Midoriya. Then he started crying. Hey, wait. I didn't mean to make you cry. Katsuo was trying to calm the boy down, who simply waved him off. No, it's just that I'm so happy. Midoriya was now smiling widely too, and Katsuo helped him up. After exchanging numbers, the two boys were discussing what to do with the sludge villain when Katsuo noticed a heavy presence behind them. Whirling around, Katsuo was met with, "Do not be scared." Why? Because I am here. Do not be afraid. Why? Because I am here. No. Seriously, who is this guy? The 7'3" blonde mountain of muscle seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, despite Katsuo's perception. Even though he flew under the radar, the man's presence was large, the way an ant looks at a human. I sure do have a long way to go, don't I? Confused by the unknown man's appearance, Katsuo turns to gauge Midoriya's reaction, only to discover that Midoriya was in fanboy mode all over again. If he thought Midoriya was fanboying before, then he was wrong. Midoriya pulled a notebook titled Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 1, out of thin air and practically begged All Might, Katsuo, deduce his name through Midoriya's ramblings, to sign one of its pages. Getting a glimpse of it, Katsuo saw that all the pages were filled to the brim with hero drawings and analyses of a hero's quirks. Looks like it could be useful for getting stronger, and also learning a thing or two about the world. After happily signing Midoriya's notebook for him, the number 1 hero began addressing the both of them. Now then, which one of you defeated the sludge villain? That would be me, sir. Katsuo raised his hand, ready to analyze what kind of hero All Might was based on his reaction. He explained what had happened, from seeing Midoriya being attacked by the villain to easily dispatching it with a quirk, all while the pro hero nodded along. I understand now. Because young Midoriya's life was in danger, and there were no heroes to save him, I'll say you acted in defense of his life. You have my sincere gratitude. To Katsuo's surprise, the rather large man bowed his head deeply, nearly hitting Katsuo on the way down. He simply waved it off, saying it was nothing. After hearing Katsuo's sincere words, his smile widened, and he went to collect the villain. Katsuo and Midoriya were stupefied by what they saw. All Might, the number 1 pro hero in the world, put the sludge villain in a plastic soda bottle and put it in one of his cargo pants pockets. What the hell? After this ridiculous display, All Might waved goodbye, much to Midoriya's dismay. As Katsuo turns around to walk home, he goes to ask Midoriya a favor. Hey, Mito, you think I could borrow that book Samedi Dash? Realizing Midoriya was no longer there, Katsuo looked around before spotting him in the air. That crazy bastard grabbed onto All Might's leg. Katsuo looked up at his new friend with a smile before laughing to himself and making his way back home. The evening news was a blast. Ms. Hiroki wasn't home yet, so Katsuo had the whole house to himself while he laughed at Hiroki's stupid-looking mugshot. He must have tried to attack something because he was being held down in a photo, and it only got better from there. Orochi wasn't just busted for illegal use of his quirk. He got busted for quirk violence, domestic abuse, bribery, and a few other shady things. The news anchor's words, not his. The joy radiating from Katsuo was immeasurable. Every new charge caused him to laugh even harder until his stomach hurt. He could practically see Orochi's face when the judge informed him of the life sentence he was going to get. As the news began to move on to other topics, Katsuo turned off the TV and sat in silence for a few minutes, thinking about all the work he had to do tomorrow. School will be a breeze for now, and I can just keep leveling up and then memorize more and more of the material we're learning. As for the system, I need to figure out this damn shop function and why I didn't have access to it before. And that penalty mission, what the hell was that? If the system is meant to promote my growth, why would it nearly kill me for not killing Orochi? I need answers, and yet the only thing I can rely on for answers is the system. Damn it. Katsuo's thoughts were cut short by a gasp and the sound of groceries landing on the floor. He turned around to see his mother crying, then put a hand up to his face. Damn it again, I forgot about my wounds. Ms. Hiroki took Katsuo in her warm embrace, smothering him while still crying. between the breaths for air and sniffles of the nose. Katsuo could make out that she was asking him if he was okay. Before, Katsuo wouldn't have been able to respond truthfully, but now he was certain, or at least kind of certain. "Yeah, Mom, I'll be fine. Besides, you should see the other guy." He and his mom had a quick laugh before they went to cook another yummy dinner for the two of them. Afterward, Katsuo's body couldn't last much longer, so he found himself dragging his body into bed to get some much-deserved shut-eye. And yet, Katsuo couldn't take that extra step to fall asleep. His eyes, still half closed from the drowsiness of exhaustion, couldn't close as he thought about everything he had been through. Every time he thought of the system, he felt a sense of unease or unrest. Eventually, though, all of those thoughts melted away as he finally shut his eyes for the night. The next was relatively simple. Katsuo excelled in classes now due to his increased intelligence, so he spent the time in the classroom looking through the shop while his mind automatically absorbed the lecture like a sponge. Only the occasional glare took his focus off of the system, but only for a moment. He had nothing to worry about from these sorry excuses for hero candidates. The shop was relatively simple. A few info boxes from the system informed him of a few categories of items he could buy: armor, weapons, potions, etc., as well as how to get the gold coins the shop ran on. Apparently, every time he killed any monster in the scenarios, he was rewarded a certain amount of gold coins based on how strong they were. That meant that the more he risked his life, the more money he would earn. Can't be too simple, I suppose. Even if that weren't the case, though, Katsuo was all in on pushing himself to his limits as much as possible. Any chance to get stronger is another chance to change the future, so every opportunity needs to be taken. With that said, Katsuo was excited by what he found in the shop. He tried on some of the simple lightweight armor. It didn't raise his defense all that much, but it was better than nothing. Even better, the armor was both invisible and untouchable. When Katsuo touched his chest where the chest plate was, all he felt was his own shirt. Must only block hostile attacks then? Aside from armor, there was also a weapons tab. Katsuo liked the feel of the dagger, so he decided to keep it for now, but some of the daggers in the shop just looked downright awesome. Not only were they all stylish, but they increased his damage by massive amounts, some of them even dealing 10x the base damage. Katsuo, who was still in class, had to contain his excitement at the thought of buying one of these things. Looking at the price, he found a modest price point of 500,000 system coins. Katsuo wasn't as excited anymore. He only had 7,000 after buying the lightweight armor set, which cost 3,000. Katsuo estimated the amount of zombie kills under his build to be 125, meaning each zombie was only worth 56 coins, and the prices of these items jacked up quickly. However, something interesting caught his eye: the potions tab. Health potions, stamina potions, mana potions. They were all there. The effects were obvious, it was in the name. But after trying out a healing potion that morning, all of Katsuo's cuts and bruises healed instantly. It wasn't a cure-all by any means. A few of the deeper cuts were still there and would probably leave scars. But everything else was fair game. Ms. Hiroki cried again, this time out of happiness. In order to get out of telling her about the system, he didn't want to worry her any more than she already was. Katsuo lied and told her that it was a part of his quirk, as much as he hated to do it. "I know she won't like it, but I'll tell her about the system once I become the strongest and can protect her smile." Once class was finally out of the way, it was time to enact his plan. Needing all of the available time he could get, Katsuo used his noggin to come up with a plan to get out of having to go to school. Study like hell. The plan was for him to use his increased intelligence to memorize a bunch of math, science, history, etc., and then use those memories to skip the last grade of middle school. It would require a lot of work, finding and looking at every page in all those books, but it would be worth it if Katsuo could find more time to level up. So after class ended and everyone was going home for the day, Katsuo found himself outside of the vice principal's office. Authority always intimidated him when he was younger, but now with the system, he might as well be walking into an empty room. The room was not empty. The vice principal was sitting at his desk, doing something on the computer, when Katsuo walked in. panicking before quickly closing something and facing toward him with a serious look on his face, like Katsuo didn't just see him playing Tetris in the reflection of the window behind him. "Hello, son. What can I do for you today?" The man looked at Katsuo with a dead face. He must have really liked playing Tetris when he was supposed to be working. "I would like to take the test to skip the rest of the 8th grade, sir." "Huh." After he wiped that agitating look off his face, the vice principal agreed to Katsuo's proposition, and the time for the test was set to the next morning before school started. After leaving school and walking back home, Katsuo found himself lost in thought about what to do next. I could return to the world of the dead to level up a few more times. Only 4 more levels, and I unlocked the next scenario at LV30. Slipping into thoughts like this had become a bad habit for Katsuo, who failed to realize he was lost until it was too late. When he finally snapped out of it, he was staring at some landfill he had never seen before. Looking at a nearby sign, Katsuo realized it wasn't a landfill, but Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Geez, this place is supposed to be a beach? Looking at the destroyed beach, Katsuo felt saddened by how it had turned out. Piles of junk were scattered everywhere, some as high as 12 feet in the air. Somebody should certainly do something about this. Katsuo began pondering a thought in his mind, the gears beginning to spin as he formulated a theory. Maybe a hero isn't just someone who saves lives. Anyone can do that. I think a hero is someone who brings smiles to people's faces, no matter what they do. I think I heard an interview with a hero in the future that said, meddling where you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. Words to live by, I suppose. Katsuo looked back at the beach, and then back to his scarred hands and arms. Then he smiled, before going down to the beach. "Okay, if no one else will, then I will clean the dash. Keep going, young Midoriya." Katsuo stopped at the sound of a man's voice. It caught him off guard, so he didn't clearly hear what he said. But did he say Midoriya? Then, as clear as day, Midoriya's voice sounded out above the junk piles. "Yes, sir, All Might." All Might? But that didn't sound like All Might. Katsuo began to creep forward, careful to not step on anything and alert the two to his presence. From behind one of the trash towers, Katsuo spotted Midoriya and a frail man, probably in his 40s, who was encouraging Midoriya as he pulled a fridge along the sand. Just as Katsuo was about to save Midoriya from the obvious scammer, Katsuo stopped once again. He felt the same feeling from before, when All Might appeared behind the two boys under the bridge. It lacked the same power, but the same feeling of good and justice was emanating from the man. And then right on cue, the frail old man let out a cloud of steam, emerging as the 7'3" monstrosity Katsuo had seen before. The transformation only lasted long enough for him to say something encouraging before he transformed back, but that was all Katsuo needed. He backed up, content on just getting out of there before they realized he was spying, but in his confused and stupefied state, Katsuo forgot he was on the dirtiest beach on Earth, accidentally breaking a bottle beneath his feet. "Who goes there?" All Might yelled, Midoriya yelping in surprise. Katsuo stuck his head out, waving his hand a bit as a greeting, and stepping forward from behind the trash. "Hello, guys." His nervous smile betrayed him, showcasing his fear that All Might would silence him. Ah, damn it. Katsuo wasn't sure why Midoriya trusted him so much. When All Might was thinking of how to proceed now that I knew his secret, Midoriya stepped up and assured him I wasn't bad. Again, it confused Katsuo, seeming as how they were only friends for around 24 hours at this point. Still, it was nice having a friend who would go out of their way for him like that. It was a nice change of pace from getting beaten up every day. All Might sighed, knowing he couldn't and shouldn't threaten a child into silence, and then spoke up. "Well, if young Midoriya here thinks you're trustworthy, then I suppose I should explain what's going on here." Katsuo, seeing All Might take a deep breath before speaking, knew he was in for a long ride, and sat down where there weren't shards of glass. The story was wrong, but entertaining nonetheless. It almost felt like some kind of childhood bedtime story. The story of a man who stood up to his evil older brother by passing on his quirk to the next generation of heroes, the power getting stronger and stronger until it eventually ended up in Midoriya. Don't get me wrong, Mito's nice, but he's too afraid to fight someone like All for One. But if All Might believes in him, and Midoriya believes in me, Then I guess I have to believe in him as well. Katsuo fully grasped the story and what it meant to be the wielder of One for All, but only had one question for All Might. Always thinking about the future and protecting everyone's smiles, Katsuo asked, "So how are you training Mito here to inherit your power?" Once again, dumbfounded. All Might had essentially just told him that he was training Midoriya by making him drag trash around all day. While it would strengthen his body, it didn't help him at all when it came to actually using the power. And what about fighting techniques? All Might may have been the #1 hero, but his teaching skills sucked at best. Rubbing his eyes, Katsuo continued, "You're a terrible mentor, sir." "Well, then how am I supposed to make him stronger?" "I don't know, muscle milk." Frustrated by the lack of intelligence demonstrated by the man before him, Katsuo had an idea. "What if both of us train him? You can train his body get stronger, and I'll teach him some of the techniques I learned." This piqued All Might's interest. He seemed to think Katsuo was just going to complain, but him actually helping was a welcome idea. "That's a great idea. What do you say, young Midoriya?" Midoriya nodded his head excitedly. The prospect of both his friend and favorite hero training him the best thing he ever heard. "Well then, with that settled, let's train you to become a formidable combatant." System alert, new quest activated. Yet another beautiful morning was ruined by Katsuo's laziness. His normal schedule of waking up at 8 a.m. and throwing his alarm clock against a pillow taped to his wall was disrupted by the grade skip test. It was only the next day after becoming Midoriya's second mentor, so Katsuo's full attention should have been on that, but he always was a nervous test taker. Even with the enhanced memory and practically 100% chance he would ace the test, Katsuo's hands were still shaking from anxiety. But ultimately, he had been through way worse, so he was able to calm down to a certain degree. After getting to school early and making his way back to the vice principal's office, who surprisingly wasn't playing Tetris this time, Katsuo was led to one of the classrooms on the first floor to take his test. Anxiety was omnipresent before the test, but it always disappeared once Katsuo got into the zone. Every question on the test was easily answerable. Even the free response questions were easy to solve. All in all, the test only took around 10 minutes to complete. The VP was skeptical at first, probably assuming Katsuo had done all this for attention or something, but a quick glance over the sheet led to the VP double-checking that the answers were correct with an answer key. "Holy crap. Huh. Well, it looks like you passed with flying colors, 40/40ths. I'll go ahead and do the necessary paperwork and make sure your absences are excused from now on. You don't need to come back until graduation." And with that, Katsuo's middle school career ended with a bang. Unfortunately, UA only accepted teenagers 14 and older, meaning he would have to wait to take the entrance exam in November at the end of the year. Still, though, he was looking pretty good so far. From beating up his bullies to full-on skipping the rest of the year, Katsuo was in pretty good shape, but it could always be better, so he decided to dedicate the next few hours to getting the last 4 levels he needed to unlock the next scenario. Katsuo stuck to the promise he made to himself like the butter on bread he had for breakfast that morning. While it did take a while, Katsuo was eventually able to level up 4 more times, having his new quest constantly rubbed in his face. After deciding to help train Midoriya in any way he could, Katsuo received an alert on a new quest, which hadn't happened in a long time. Quest title: Train to become a formidable combatant. Type: Story. Description: The fate of the world rests on the shoulder of one man, but his mentor sucks. If you help out the young hero now, you may benefit from it in the future. Requirements: Assist in the training of Izuku Midoriya. Rewards: This quest was bullshit in every way. 1. When did the system decide Midoriya had been sufficiently trained? And 2. Where the hell were all the rewards? These were practically the only thoughts going through Katsuo's head as he finished up the last 4 levels he needed. Navigating his way back to the Scenario tab, he clicked on the next scenario, which was no longer grayed out. This one was different from the first scenario, this time having a description. Scenario title: Tower of Dungeons. LV requirement: 30. Description: Adventurers far and wide venture to these dungeons to become stronger and obtain the treasures within. But make no mistake, The Tower of Dungeons is a very dangerous existence. Yap, just let me in already. Katsuo couldn't bear to keep his excitement in. All he really gathered from the description was that people went to this tower to get stronger, which made him visibly excited. He clicked on the button to enter the scenario, only to be hit with a paywall. After coughing up 5,000 coins to unlock the scenario completely, Katsuo was transported into the Tower of Dungeons. The tower was vastly different from the first scenario. For one, it was populated. If Katsuo had read the description more carefully, he would have seen that he wouldn't be the only one here. Katsuo appeared in front of 2 large wooden doors, which seemed to be some kind of portal, most likely to the outside of the tower. People were both entering and leaving the dungeon frequently, and just a simple glance would reveal that there was practically an entire town in there. Small buildings littered the entire floor, around 10 to 15 buildings total, with the ones on the outside jutting up against the wall. The buildings were occupied by merchants, craftsmen, and a single bar which seemed quite popular. With nowhere else to go, Katsuo had an idea. When in need of information, go to the bar. It was a timeless tale, and probably proven true too. Making his way inside, Katsuo sat at the bar. Katsuo got a strange look from a bartender when he ordered plain old water from a bar. But that was the only one he got. After receiving his admittedly delicious water, Katsuo got to ask questions of the bartender while he wiped down the bar. Eventually, Katsuo had all the information laid out in his mind. There were 20 floors to the dungeon, each one more dangerous than the last the farther you descended. The floors move around and remade themselves frequently, so the dungeon would likely be different each time he went in. In order to claim treasure from the dungeon, small amounts could be found in randomly placed chests, or mana crystals could be taken from the boss's corpse for a large pay at the guild office. After supplying himself with sufficient information, it was time to go dungeon crawling. His journey through the first floor was nothing short of a bloodbath, Katsuo having gone at least 20 to 1 against the monsters on that floor and come out unscratched. Then came the boss. It was a minotaur wielding a greatsword. Its movements were slow but strong, giving Katsuo a little bit of a hard time blocking, so he stuck to dodging and parrying. Ultimately, all it took was a quick slice through the neck, and the mythical beast was down for good, disappearing into a black mist and only leaving behind a large mana stone. As he picked it up, the system rang out with a new notification. The system has detected a tradable item being picked up by the player. The trading tab of the shop has now been opened. Mana crystals, as well as other drops from monsters, can be exchanged in the system shop for special coins. These coins can be used by the keys for special dungeons. Everything the system said was confirmed by the addition of 2 new tabs in the shop, one being the trading station, and the other being a tab titled Keys. In the trading tab, Katsuo inserted the mana crystals into the system. He just stuck them through the screen and got back 10 special coins. Looking at the Keys tab, Katsuo saw the cheapest key, the XP giveaway scenario, was 500 special coins. Nothing in life is easy. As he turned around to exit the dungeon and grab another glass of water from the tavern, Katsuo spotted a group of adventurers who were looking at him like he had 2 heads. He put 2 and 2 together, assuming they were dumbfounded by someone who could clear the dungeon by themselves. He simply waved at them as he passed by, making his way back to the tavern and ordering more water. Yet again, the bartender gave him a strange look. The combined time spent in both dungeons, around 5 hours, only amounted to around an hour when Katsuo got back, making it 9 in the morning. With nothing else to do, he asked his mom if she needed him to get anything from the store. After receiving a short list of stuff to buy from the convenience store, Katsuo began walking at a leisurely pace, taking in the sights and sounds of the less busy streets of Mustafa. Katsuo bought the items from the store and made his way back to the house, dropping off the groceries before settling back down in his room. I need to put these new stats to good use. Mom has her surgery on Monday, and it'll be expensive. It'll definitely be money we don't have right now, that's for sure. The gears began turning once again, Katsuo tossing a few ideas back and forth in his head, testing them out and ultimately concluding they wouldn't work. Then his light bulb lit up. An idea. A good one at that. Katsuo, giddy as a child in a candy store, ran to find his mother, who was reading on the couch. "Hey, Mom, do you have any of those books you studied in college?" HL. Katsuo's plan was simple when laid out on paper. It's the execution he wasn't excited about. After leveling up earlier in the day, Katsuo's intelligence stat had expanded even more, allowing for even more memory storage. That's where the college books came in. If he could memorize math and science on every level, he would be considered a genius in any field he worked in. The one he was specifically interested in was the hero support industry. They were the ones responsible for designing gear that make heroes even stronger when on the field. This could be anything, from suits to arm cannons to sunglasses with built-in screens. The reason for picking this industry was simple: everyone benefits. Katsuo's overall goal is to preserve the smiles of everyone he cares about, as well as the rest of the world. So what would be better than making heroes stronger? If he could memorize all the books he could find on math and science, then Katsuo could make money off of designing hero support gear, while also strengthening the heroes for the upcoming battles in the future, even if he had no clue where or even what they were. That was another problem he had encountered after reviving. He didn't know anything about the future. It's not like his memories were wiped clean or anything. He just didn't know. From middle school onwards, Katsuo was practically dead inside, useless fate, and all that. He could barely keep himself functioning on a day-to-day basis, let alone pay attention to anything going on around him. It's why he didn't recognize the number one hero when he was right in front of him, or why he can't use any knowledge of the future to his advantage, because he doesn't have any. And unlike all of his other problems, this one couldn't be solved. There was nothing he could do about it, so he decided to stop thinking about it and get back to work. He had memorized every page within the hour and still had plenty of memory to spare, so it was time to go to the library. Where was that again? After asking his mom for directions, it was to go to the library. It had a strict 4-book maximum borrowing. So Katsuo spent the next few hours memorizing as many books as he could, page by word-filled page. God, I hate studying. HL, told from the perspective of Eijiro Kirishima. It all happened so fast. I was walking back home from school that afternoon when I saw some people looking scared, so I followed their line of sight to check it out for myself. And there, I saw a large man, probably 9 or 10 feet tall, staring down at a group of middle school girls while he asked them a question. "Do you know where the Sprinter Agency is?" The man was covered by a black trench coat and black fedora, making him even more intimidating than he already was. The girls were quite possibly in danger, and yet I could do nothing, frozen in the spot I was standing in out of pure fear. One of the girls, a pink-haired one I recognized as my classmate, Mina Ishido, was about to stand up for her friends and tell the man when someone else walked up. It was a boy our age with black hair, striking purple eyes, and a somewhat muscular frame. The fear in his eyes when he tapped on the giant's arm was obvious to anyone who caught a glimpse of them, and yet he still got the giant to look at him. "I know where it is if you're willing to follow me." The boy feigned a bubbly personality, but seemed to trick the giant well enough. That boy was so manly, something I wasn't, not at all. Instead of protecting those girls, all I could do was stand there like an idiot and make someone else do it for me. Damn it. I ended up walking away in disgrace, content to not let the girls see me. HL, what the hell did I do that for? Katsuo was on his way back from the library. For books in the plastic bag he was carrying when he saw a man speaking to a group of girls his age. It was creepy to him, but he most likely would have just walked away if it weren't for his perception. He could tell from looking at him and examining him. The man was dangerous. Not just his tall frame, but everything he knew. His instincts knew. Hell, probably everybody in a 5-mile vicinity knew. And yet, despite that information, Katsuo still tapped on the giant's shoulder and led him away from the girls. Bullets of sweat ran down his forehead as he walked along, the giant close behind him. I don't know where the Sprinter Agency is. I don't even know who the hell's Springer IS. The anxiety from before the test was back in full force, practically crippling his hands and legs, which were shaking out of control. Eventually, Katsuo found a clearing and led the giant into it. Oh, God, what do I do now? What His panic thought was interrupted by a single word blasting through his brain like a bad headache. Dodge! Katsuo jumped out of the way, barely missing a heavy punch from the giant. You lied. Puny insect. The giant punched even harder this time. Katsuo not be able to dodge or even block it this time, taking the full brunt of the blow straight to his stomach and going flying into the tree. Crash! Katsuo left a crate the size of his back in the tree, coughing up an insane amount of blood as he tried to analyze the situation to no avail. The giant walked over to Katsuo, picked him up, and slammed him on the ground one good time before waiting for him to move. He couldn't even. The giant's attack was simply too much for him to handle, and he lay there, still slightly coughing up blood. Seemingly content, the giant wandered back into the city. At least the girls are safe. Katsuo used the last of his remaining energy to open up the shop and grab a healing potion, using it to heal at least some of his injuries. It wasn't 100% effective, but it was good enough. The feeling began to return to Katsuo's body once again, allowing him to painstakingly try to stand back up. It worked, but damn did it still hurt like hell. As Katsuo began to stumble back home, book still safe in the plastic bag, one thought echoed constantly through his head. Don't get cocky. Don't get cocky. Don't get cocky. After getting himself thoroughly beaten into the dirt, Katsuo downed a health potion and posted up against a tree he crashed into for just a minute. Or at least, that was the plan until his exhaustion knocked him out cold, leaving him there for way longer than he should have been. By the time he finally woke up, the sun was going down, and his mom would start getting worried in around an hour. Slowly picking himself up, Katsuo noticed the pain was mostly gone. A simple limp was all that remained as he made his way down the street. Examining his body, Katsuo saw that most of the bruises were gone, save for a few scars that were particularly nasty. The shockwave of the crash caused the rest of the flooring to also shatter, flying into the air with Katsuo riding one of the pieces. Seeing the perfect opportunity, he went in for the kill, activating his jump barrage skill to jump from one piece to the other, making cuts in the giant as he flew by. However, the giant was too strong, and so it smacked Katsuo out of the air, who landed on the wall. In an instant, though, Katsuo jumped back off the wall and aimed for the giant, this time cutting straight through the nape of its neck with one final blow, sending it to the floor. The giant disappeared upon impact with the ground, turning into a cloud of black dust that slowly but surely dissipated, allowing Katsuo to spot a mana crystal where the giant had just died. Landing safely on the ground, Katsuo grabbed the crystal and went to sit on one of the giant pieces of rubble left in the wake of his fight. Before he could trade it in the shop, however, a group of armored soldiers ran into the room, circling him and pointing their spears at him. Katsuo, unfazed by the sudden intrusion, merely slipped the crystal into his pocket and stepped off the stone, gazing at the soldiers one by one. They tensed up at his gaze, almost like instinct, but they stayed ready for a fight. Is this another rookie crushing? Katsuo had grown accustomed to something like this happening at random. After his first trip onto Floor 1 being incredibly successful, groups of adventurers who didn't like new blood cramping their style would sometimes try to bully him into quitting. Of course, none of those weaklings stood a chance, and Katsuo always came out on top. In fact, Katsuo must have gotten popular among those clowns, because the attacks stopped after some time. Either that, or they were too busy recovering in the hospital to come after him again. Either way, he didn't think it would happen again. And he was right. You don't have to worry. These hard-working men are merely for safety purposes. Katsuo turned his gaze to the entrance of the boss room, spotting a woman in office clothing coming towards him. Sensing no ill intent from anyone in the room, Katsuo settled down. I apologize for startling you. The soldiers are only there in case you were dangerous. I mean, you are, but you don't seem like the type to hurt innocent people. The woman waited for Katsuo's response. So, what are you doing here? The woman smiled at his question, signaling the guards to lower their weapons but stay vigilant just in case. The guild master would like to meet you. HL, Katsuo was going to decline at first, but soon decided that whatever was happening might be worth his trouble. And so, he found himself in the office of the guild master, sitting right across from the man himself. He was old, with wrinkles all over his face and snow-white hair to match. However, he exuded power, and if Katsuo had to guess, they were probably on the same level, in terms of raw power. However, Katsuo had no doubt in his mind that the old man's experience could easily allow for Katsuo's defeat. Never underestimate the elderly. Mr. Katsuo, was it? Thank you for taking time out of your day to come see a doddering old fool such as myself. The guild master spoke with a gruff voice, analyzing Katsuo's movements as he readjusted himself in the seat. Please, sir, I have all the time in the world. It wasn't necessarily true, but it was close to it. The time in the scenarios was way less compared to the time in the real world, with 4 hours in scenarios only equating to around 10 minutes on Earth. Recognizing it was his turn to speak again, the old man continued. It would seem the rumors about your strength are true. My secretary informed me of a battle between you and the 5th floor boss, where you came out of it with only a few scratches. Is that true? Katsuo nodded his head in affirmation, much to the guild leader's delight. That's good then, because I'm afraid I need your help. You see, once every 5 years, something called a dungeon break occurs. It's when the monsters from each floor of the dungeon find their way down to floor 0 in an attempt to leave the tower. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how disastrous it would be if the monsters got out of the tower. Fortunately, only the monsters from floor 10 and below can make it down here, but it still poses a threat. I want to request your help in defeating the monsters tomorrow night, when they make it down to floor 1. Of course, you will be rewarded very handsomely, and your reputation will also skyrocket. I wouldn't dream of asking if I couldn't pay you in return. Money, reputation, and heroism are all well and good, but Katsuo only wanted one thing out of this fight implicitly: experience. Killing an army of monsters coming in his direction just sounded like a whole bunch of experience collecting right in front of him. Leveling up would certainly make his job a lot easier, and Katsuo could trade the money into the system and invest in 2 new daggers. His old one was starting to wear down a bit. With another determined smile on his face, Katsuo stuck out his hand, meeting the guild masters above the table. I'm in. New quest has been generated. Katsuo had briefly returned to Earth in order to tell his mom and friends they may be unable to reach him for an hour or so. A couple half-lives was all it took to assure them that he would be fine, and he was back on floor 0, doing everything he could to prepare for the dungeon break, reaching its climax in an hour. Even now, the echoing thumps of hundreds, maybe thousands of monsters making their way down could be heard from town. All the merchants had long since abandoned their shops for fear of death, except for the bartender who kept the tavern open. No alcohol, of course. Katsuo found himself helping out wherever he could, moving boxes of supplies, giving speeches to ease the nerves of the brave men and women fighting, etc. His worries for how this would all turn out only rose when he saw the makeshift barricade being put up. There was only around half a day left before the dungeon break occurred, but still, wooden spikes and haphazardly placed crates were not going to defend against a horde of monsters coming for the first 10 floors. So, putting his knowledge on architecture to good use, courtesy of the library, Katsuo and some adventurers knocked down an unused building and used it to build up an even better wall. Not like the bar was set high, though. There were more jobs left to do, but Katsuo left those to the experts since his mind could only hold so much information right now. Eventually, he found himself on top of one of the guild buildings, watching the people work tirelessly as they prepared for a war. Katsuo did notice a rather bright man sitting around doing nothing, but it was none of Katsuo's business. That guy is going to die first. Katsuo took out his lunchbox, which had been packed by his mother, and slowly began eating away at it, refilling his energy. He could have just drunk a stamina potion and been done with it, but boxed lunches from loved ones heal the body and the soul. Needless to say, Katsuo got out of it with much more energy. Realizing he had a pretty good vantage point of the area, Katsuo stood up and began analyzing defenses. Everything seemed good for the most part. The wall was nearly finished. Supplies were where they needed to be, and it seemed the preparations were nearly complete with an entire hour left to spare. An open field of rock stood in between the edge of town and the entrance to floor 1. Upon first coming here, Katsuo had wondered why they didn't expand as much as possible. But with dungeon breaks happening, he guessed they wanted the least amount of damage possible. I wonder how my friends are doing. Friends. Huh. When did he begin worrying about other people? When did he have people to worry about? Everything after saving his mom was a little bit of a blur. Constant fighting and bloodshed had eventually led to Katsuo sort of making his way through life on autopilot. He had clear memories of Midoriya and Kirishima, how he'd inspired the two to follow their dreams and become heroes. But that was it. He could barely even remember the blonde guy from the beach. This realization brought a deep-seated unrest to Katsuo's soul. If he couldn't enjoy his new life to the fullest, then what made it any different from his old one? Guess I'll have to slow down a bit when I get home. I won't instantly die if I stop working for a few days. With that little bit of soul-searching out of the way, Katsuo's ears picked up the sound of the roof entrance opening and closing behind him. Turning around, Katsuo spotted the guildmaster. "Hey, old man." Proud of the way things are going down there. The old man found his place next to Katsuo and looked down at all of the young adventurers, scrambling about to get their jobs done, while also finding the time to smile and laugh. He looked down at them with the eyes of a grandpa, watching his grandchildren play in the dirt. I'll be proud once I see them smiling tomorrow and know they'll be all right. The two men just stood there for a while, taking the sight of the glowing town and the darkness of the area. All those little people down there, each with their own life to live after today. Those lives are precious flames that must be protected. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as the time for war was near approaching. You know where to go. I'll see you after this ordeal is over. The guild leader shook Katsuo's hand, entrusting the lives of his adventurers to Katsuo. After that, they parted ways, each going to their own station. Although he was still strong, the guild leader was much stronger when it came to strategy and planning. He saw a battlefield the way an artist saw a blank canvas, remembering every adventurer's strengths and weaknesses, then selecting the best place for them to be. He was on top of another, shorter building that was closer to the front. Meanwhile, Katsuo had posted up at the nose of the army, being one of the commanders on the front lines. He and two other men were there, supposedly the strongest in the tower. The first man was the flashy guy from before. His golden hair, shiny white armor, and smug attitude were shining in the darkness. In a bad way. My, they sent more street trash to back me up? Whatever, I suppose a dirty rat like yourself will just have to do. Katsuo could tell immediately who this guy was. His name was not important enough to remember, but his class? Oh man, this guy was a textbook, self-important, ego-inflated royal. Not the type of royal to recognize noblesse oblige, but the type to think anyone who isn't royalty is gutter trash and worth nothing. Katsuo didn't think this guy had worked for anything in his life, much less picked up a sword, but maybe he was just judging a book by its ugly, disgusting cover. Either that, or he had this guy all figured out from just a glance. Next up for meet and greet was the other strongest adventurer, known as the Black Death, a creative name for someone who walked away from Katsuo as he tried to make small talk. The man looked to be around 17, maybe 18 years old. He had black, spiky hair with crimson red eyes that shone brilliantly in the dark. He was wearing a pitch-black coat with a hood on it, although the hood was off when Katsuo saw him. His face almost looked lifeless, like this was the last place he wanted to be. But his eyes told a different story. Katsuo had never seen himself in a reflection while fighting, but he imagined the way his eyes looked when he was excited in a battle looked exactly like his before this fight started. Katsuo also took the time to get to know the men and women he would be leading into battle. They were all very kind and humble, unlike Flashy Bastard, who was too busy checking out his hair in the reflection of a sword to talk to anyone. Bet if there was a princess here, that guy would be all about helping the poor unfortunates. Disdain aside, Katsuo recognized the strength of his soldiers and made his way back to the front. Only 5 minutes remained until the dungeon break commenced. The sound of footsteps had long since made their way to the town, but they were much more faint. Now, the footsteps sounded as if they were right next to Katsuo, the sound bouncing off the cave walls over and over again. Katsuo's grip on his dagger tightened, sweat trickling down his forehead as he pulled up the system window one last time to look at his quest regarding the dungeon break. Requirement for completion: successfully defend the Floor 0 town from the army of monsters. This will be successful when the Floor 10 boss has been killed. The clear conditions were simple: defend the town and kill the final boss. However, Katsuo's growing sense of unease only worsened as the timer on the quest counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The dungeon break has begun. The system window automatically closed itself as the first horde of monsters appears. Fortunately, it was only the monsters from Floor 1. Nothing too bad. It was more like an appetizer before the main course. Katsuo led the charge, flashy bastard running ahead to show off like the prick Katsuo had already guessed him to be. A simple jump barrage was all it took to clear out the monsters. Because Floor 0 was so large, the walls were way too spread apart for Katsuo to jump off of them. So he ended up settling for just jumping off of the monsters as he cut through them all. There was no break in the action, however. More monsters began to pour in at a rapid rate. Kobolds, armored skeletons, large green slimes, etc. It seemed every monster was being pulled from D&D and put straight in Katsuo's line of fire. As the monsters became progressively stronger and stronger, Katsuo found himself having to spend more and more time on each group, but he managed. Soon, a break in the fighting appeared where Floor 5 should have been. The reason there were no monsters here was due to Katsuo's rampage across Floor 5 the day before. The adventurers took this time to regroup and plan their next move, with the guild leader reorganizing his soldiers to fill in for the adventurers who had been injured during the first 4 waves. All in all, not many of them were hurt, and there were no deaths to speak of. The adventurers crowded around Katsuo. Phrases like, "Thank you," and "You're a lifesaver," were thrown around like crazy. A blushing Katsuo saying he was just doing what was right as his ego began to inflate. Of course, memories of the giant from a couple days ago stopped it from getting too large, but Katsuo was happy. He had successfully preserved their smiles in the middle of a war, and that was all he needed. Of course, the break didn't last long. After everyone had gotten situated, they were back to the fight. Katsuo didn't know it yet, but shit was about to get real. Floor 7 was a bloodbath. Katsuo was surrounded on all sides by giants, minotaurs, slimes, etc. He dodged a giant stone, jumped on top of it, and sliced through the necks of 10 minotaurs before turning his attention to the giants. Fun fact: slimes are extremely acidic. Katsuo found that out when a strong kick had pushed a giant into a slime, its screams of pain and possibly even terror echoing all throughout the cave. Katsuo had no time to process this, however, as more giants began to converge on his location. He jumped, punched, kicked, and slashed his way through the horde, keeping a tight circle of open air around him at all times to keep from being overwhelmed. Jump barrage and punch barrage could only do so much as their cooldowns kept getting in the way of their use. Katsuo had drunk around 10 stamina potions and 2 health potions at this point, and he was starting to wonder how much money he would actually make by the end of this ordeal. Time after time, more monsters, and even more monsters came out of the woodwork. Jump, slash, kill, jump, slash, kill. The blood evaporating off of Katsuo's skin as an unstoppable force meant an army the size of a small country. He didn't know how many enemies remained, nor how many allies would still be alive to have his back. All he knew was that he had to keep going, for the sake of everything he fought for up until now. And then, the fighting came to a stop. A giant greenish-blue tail came out of nowhere, slamming into Katsuo's side and sending him to the other side of the small town, crashing into a shop. Everything was blurry, the sounds of screaming distant as Katsuo's vision began to fade. And then he was back. Through sheer force of will and a determination to see this fight through to the end, Katsuo gritted his teeth and climbed his way through the rubble, making his way onto the roof of the shop. He drank a health and stamina potion, not entirely back to full strength, but better off than he was a second ago. His eyesight returned to normal. The battlefield grew more defined and less blurry. What he saw was a massacre. The adventurers had suffered a few casualties and were retreating away from the wall. They were fine in the grand scheme of things. Looking in the direction they were running from, however, Katsuo saw the army of monsters being slaughtered by another monster. The creature was large, taking up a good chunk of the battlefield. Its scaly skin was greenish-blue, with a tail behind it that was smacking monsters into the ground repeatedly. And at the top of its body were 3 separate heads, with large fangs and deathly eyes. The Hydra Floor 9, unlike the monsters around it, who ignored each other in favor of killing humans, the Hydra was a mindless monstrosity, merely killing anything near it. The adventurers were all hiding behind the buildings now, praying to anything that would listen to spare them and save their friends and family from the thing that was currently killing every living creature it saw. Katsuo, knowing he had no time to spare, began making his way to the battlefield once again. He spotted the 2 men from earlier and touched down next to them. "Okay, guys, what's the plan?" Katsuo asked, looking at the other 2 as they simply watched the monster. Flashy Bastard was horrified, and Katsuo doubted that he would still be here if he could get his legs to move properly. But the other man, his crimson eyes just screamed excitement, like he couldn't wait to get into the fight, his deranged smile adding on to that startling conclusion. "Okay, let's just rush in and attack, yeah?" And that was how Katsuo found himself running alongside a potential serial killer and a potential serial bedwetter, a literal wet blanket, if you would. The Hydra caught sight of the unlikely trio, swinging its tail down and absolutely obliterating the ground where they once were. Katsuo and Flashy Bastard had jumped off to the right, while Crimson-Eyed Psycho Killer jumped to the left. Katsuo could have sworn he saw Crimson licking his blade too. Katsuo began running up the Hydra's tail, dodging balls of acid spit as he made his way up the torso. Flashy Bastard was no longer anywhere to be seen. The middle head of the Hydra prioritized Katsuo, firebolts flying everywhere in a blaze of glory as Katsuo began running faster and faster, running up the scaly back of the Hydra. And lo and behold, a giant jumped onto the Hydra's back as well. "I'm such a trendsetter," Katsuo thought to himself as he dodged the giant's equally large stone and sliced through his neck. It was nothing but cannon fodder as Katsuo finally made his way up to the base of the necks. Somehow, Flashy Bastard and Crimson were already up there, cutting through the necks as best as they could. Katsuo decided to target the middle head, jumping off of the other 2 as he began to slice and dice through the Hydra's neck. Timber, the head fell off of the Hydra, slamming into the ground. "Eha!" The sound of a royal scream pierced Katsuo's ears. Flashy Bastard was now Bloody Bastard, being chewed up inside the left head. "No!" Katsuo, who was now standing on his last legs from pain and exhaustion, made one last desperate bid to save Blood Bastard from his fate, pouring all of his mana into a single, highly strengthened punch to the jaw. It worked, maybe too well. The Hydra's head burst, covering Katsuo and already Bloody Bastard as they fell to ground. Oof! Katsuo held his damaged side, the groans of pain coming from Bloody Bastard snapping him out of it. He grabbed the poor man, whose lower body was fully chewed through, and began running back to town. Crimson must have finished off the Hydra, because one last screech was heard before its shadow began to grow over Katsuo. "It's falling right over us." Katsuo poured his energy into his legs, sprinting even faster as he just barely cleared the impact area. He tripped, sending him and poor Bastard to the ground. It was clear now there was no hope for poor Bastard to survive. Katsuo dragged himself over, buying a healing potion from the shop. He considered drinking it himself, not having enough money to buy another one, before deciding to give it to the man beside him, hoping it would alleviate some of his pain. Katsuo collapsed onto the ground. "What is labored breathing? Your name?" The man asked, using his last words to learn the name of his hero. "Katsuo. Hiroki Katsuo." The man didn't respond. Katsuo tilted his head over to look at him, gazing upon the man's visage. He looked like he was asleep, but Katsuo knew better. The last thing he remembered seeing before blacking out was the guild leader's panicked expression, the sound having faded away as Katsuo finally succumbed to his injuries and allowed himself to be swallowed by the darkness, if only temporarily. Quest cleared. That was certainly an interesting display, no? It would seem the successor to power has been born. He has certainly proven himself to be a worthy adversary. We may see fun yet again, my friends. The creature, cloaked in darkness and death, gazed upon Katsuo as he was taken into a medical tent, before leaving the battlefield. "Until now, Bloodbringer." The flames crackle. The sounds of women and children screaming echo through the streets, now devoid of life. The sound of the buildings around me crumbling. The sound of those monsters, the Nomu, growing nearer. This has happened before, hasn't it? I remember running. They were behind me, I think. I ran out onto the main street and saw a girl about to be attacked by one of those monsters. I saved her, got her away from the danger, or at least away from the danger behind me. I distracted the Nomu, more came, and then oh God. They're punching, kicking, stomping, I can't escape. A rabbit saves me, then continues on its way. And then I die. No system. No phantom pain from my missing arm. Nothing. A dark void where I spend the rest of my days. Katsuo almost flung himself out of his bed with how fast he sat up. He gripped his face with his sweaty hand, attempting to get his breathing under control. Just a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. After a few moments, Katsuo finally calmed down enough to forget his nightmare and take a look around. He wasn't on his bed, but a green cot. I've really made it a habit of collapsing, haven't I? Looking around, he was in some kind of medical tent. Memories of his fight with a Leviathan, and the poor bastard, he couldn't say returned near instantly. He slowly got out of bed, and after assuring the worried nurse that he was fine, made his way out of the tent. It seemed that the town had survived. There were only a few people inside the tent, with the rest helping out in restoring the town to its former glory. The merchants had returned to their shops, but one in particular was just staring at his shop, dumbfounded by the large hole in his wall and ceiling, caused by Katsuo being rammed into by the Leviathan's tail. I'll have to help him repair that later. Katsuo, having nothing else to do other than that, decided to go check out the guild leader. It was a bit hazy, but he remembered the old man helping him after he collapsed. Looking around, Katsuo finally spotted the guild leader on top of some sort of makeshift wooden tower. Make sure that thing doesn't collapse, Katsuo said teasingly. The old man looked down, smiling wide when he saw Katsuo back to normal. Katsuo, my boy, I'm happy you're awake. The guild leader spouted off a few more orders to the adventurers and climbed down, walking over to meet Katsuo. I know this might not be the right time, but please follow me. I have your reward in my office. Katsuo wanted to help out with the merchant's shop, but that could wait for later. It was reward time. Upon entering his office, the guild leader stepped to the side and allowed Katsuo to see the massive leather sack on his desk, along with a card. Picking it up and examining it, Katsuo discovered it was an adventurer's card. It was shiny and white, a subtle glare showing as Katsuo moved it back and forth under the magic lights of the room. Although it was blank. Is this a joke or some kind of irony that I don't get? Katsuo said, waving the empty card around beside him. Of course not, Katsuo. You're the pride and joy of my guild after all. Simply place a drop of your blood on the card, and the magic will do its work for you. Simple enough. Katsuo summoned his dagger, which was definitely going to break soon, and pricked the tip of his pointer finger with it, placing the drop of blood on the card as he was instructed to. A light began to glow from the point of contact, and a sort of ripple moved across the card surface. After the ripple made it to the edge of the card, Katsuo's information appeared on the card. Name, Hiroki Katsuo. Class, Assassin. Rank, SSS. Katsuo's eyes began to trace the shape of the letters coming after his rank. SSS? That's the strongest ranking. Katsuo was terrible at hiding his excitement in this situation. To his credit, though, so was the guild leader. My God, I knew you were the strongest in the guild, but to be this strong. Katsuo high-fived the director before the two realized how uncouth they were being and settled down. Ahem. Anyway, you might be wondering what this card is for. Basically, it will track your progress through the dungeon. Each level is not only more difficult, but longer as well. It will take more time on each floor to reach the boss. The card can also tell you how strong you are currently. Katsuo looked on the back and found a familiar-looking pentagon. I already have a system for that and more, but I'll keep this as a memento because it's cool. Undeterred by the near uselessness of the card, Katsuo slipped it into his jeans pocket and turned toward the table. The leather really was large, about as big as the lower half of Katsuo's torso. Looking inside the bag, revealed it was filled to the brim with gold coins. The initial excitement of realizing this was all as faded quickly, though. Katsuo turned to the guild leader and pointed at the bag with a face that said, "Will this crash your economy?" In response, the guild leader simply threw a thumbs up, which could honestly mean anything. Katsuo looked back at the bag with a conflicted look. "Sir, thank you so much for this, but aren't there people who deserve this way more than I do?" The old man simply looked at Katsuo with a kind smile on his face, one deeply resembling that of grandfather. Maybe he actually was one. "Katsuo, you are a kind person indeed. You should not feel conflicted about receiving this reward. It's only right after all. You saved a lot of people, and those people are very thankful. I don't know why, but there were more monsters this time than any time recorded in history. If you weren't there 2 days ago, I doubt any of us would have survived. You have my and everyone else's gratitude." Katsuo, who looked at the guild master dumbfounded, simply turned toward the bag and said, "Thank you." Then he realized something. 2 days. Panic spread across Katsuo's face in an instant, struggling to process the newfound information. How long have I been in here? 4 hours equals 10 minutes. 24 hours equals 1 hour. 48 hours equals 2 hours. Oh, thank God. The worry and panic soon dissipated from Katsuo's visage. He had thought he was in the scenario for at least a day. But the math checked out. He was only gone from Earth for 2 hours. Like some kind of hyperbolic time chamber or something. Thankful for the money and ready to leave as soon as possible, Katsuo picked up the heavy bag and made his way out the exit, finding a secluded alleyway to dump his money into the system. Then came the fun part. Katsuo sat on the ground and watched the money in his bank account skyrocket from a measly 37 coins to 250,537 coins. Katsuo's hand began to shake in excitement. He sold his worn-out daggers for 100 coins each and bought 2 high-end daggers for 100,000 each. Next on the chopping block was armor. It had been a while since the last time Katsuo updated his armor set, but he still remembered his preferences. He bought the most expensive set of light armor he could get, his new total being 5,537 coins. Now, I should probably help out that poor shopkeep. HL, when Katsuo exited the scenario, he found himself standing on top of a rather large building. Now, Katsuo doesn't have a fear of heights. He has a fear of falling from high places. So after the initial wow and so cool, Katsuo found himself sprinting away from the ledge and trying to calm himself down. I can take on an army of monsters, but ledges are still too much for me. The rest of the day went as it would before the system. Katsuo decided he was taking things too fast and should just relax for a little bit. Of course, relax didn't mean to him what it meant to other people. That's why when Kirishima stopped by his house the next day asking if he wanted to go to the gym with him, Katsuo asked, "You mind if I bring a friend along?" And that's how it happened. 2 days after the dungeon break, Katsuo and Midoriya were standing outside of the gym, waiting for Kirishima. It wasn't just a regular gym, however. It was quite possibly the nicest gym either of them had ever seen. It was the kind of place where the 2 young boys didn't even think they could afford to sweat on the equipment, much less use it. As always, Midoriya was shaking like a leaf in a storm, although Katsuo couldn't guess for the life of him why. That was just the Midoriya way, he supposed. "Oh, hey, Katsuo." Katsuo turned to greet his friend, but stopped as soon as he saw him. The semi-timid boy with long black hair falling down past his ears was suddenly replaced by a boy with red hair that shot out from his head like spikes. You look different," were the only words that Katsuo could get out. Between the overly nice gym and his new friend doing a complete 180, Katsuo's brain was fried. Seems the system can change everything about him for the better. Yeah, I decided that if I was going to get into UA, I should change myself up a bit and break out of my old shell. Now it was Midoriya's turn to do a 180. While Katsuo was still processing how someone could change so drastically in just a day, Midoriya got the jump on his new best friend. "You're going to UA? So am I." Kirishima and Midoriya became fast friends after that. They began bonding over their shared love of heroes. I mean, who didn't love them? As well as what they thought the exam was going to be like. Meanwhile, Katsuo finally got himself back together just in time for his friend's question. Are you to apply to UA also, Katsuo? Katsuo looked at them confusedly and said, What's UA? Bruh. Kirishima and Midoriya looked at Katsuo like he had grown a second head, and after confirming he didn't, the two explained what the hell UA was while practically tripping over each other in excitement. Basically, UA was one of the many schools that trained people to become proper heroes. The difference between UA and other schools, however, was that UA was a hero school, the best in Japan by far. If you graduated from UA, then your hero career was set. Kirishima and Midoriya made sure to hammer that into Katsuo's surprisingly unaware brain. The fact that he didn't know anything about anything was startling to the boys. After finally calming down the hero-obsessed duo, the three boys made their way inside. A few things automatically stuck out to Katsuo. For one, the gym was nearly empty. Despite the place being so nice and clean, it didn't seem to have any patrons. Two, the owner of the establishment was an old man who definitely didn't look like he could keep this place up by himself. The only way Katsuo thought he could manage was because of number three. There was a big man wiping down the bench press. The bell from the door had briefly grabbed his attention, but he soon went back to what he was doing. After Kirishima explained that we were his plus twos to the kind old man at the desk, who was playing solitaire on computer, he led the two newbies over to the big guy. The man was at least 6 feet tall, had snow-white hair that kind of swooped upwards, if that makes sense, and a bulky frame that was absolutely built. This guy was a regular. Mr. Hajiwara. These are the two guys I was telling you about. Katsuo introduced himself with confidence and gusto, while Midoriya did his usual shaking routine while stuttering out his name. If he wasn't careful, people would start thinking his name was Mimi Midoriya or something. Ah, it's great to meet you, kids. My name is Hajiwara Amaya. Kirishima has talked a lot about you, Katsuo. Kirishima shut his eyes, smiled widely, and rubbed the back of his head, while nodding. In the corner of his eye, however, Katsuo saw Midoriya look up to the sound of Mr. Hajiwara's voice, as if it were familiar. Your Death Arms. Katsuo looked at the large gym-goer in alarm, assuming from the name that Death Arms was a villain. The sight of Midoriya pulling his notebook out of nowhere excitedly put him at ease, however. Katsuo and Kirishima were easily confused, but the words Mr. Hajiwara said, while writing his name into the mysterious notebook, did something to ease their confusion. Honestly, I'm surprised you could find that out, Midoriya. Although, I guess I didn't do much to hide my identity. Mr. Hajiwara chuckled to himself, and Katsuo did the same, knowing he could have seen it if he knew who Death Arms was. After Mr. Hajiwara formally introduced himself to the teenagers, he began to teach Katsuo and Midoriya how to properly use machines. The casual gym-goer also helped in making sure Midoriya didn't injure himself while he found out what his limits were. Katsuo also needed help, but much less of it. Katsuo tapped out at around 300 pounds, which was crazy to the other three men considering Katsuo was only 13 years old, and he didn't even look all that strong. That was another reason for Katsuo to hit the gym. While he wanted to enjoy the childhood he never had with his friends, keeping up the appearance of a semi-normal person would aid in keeping his system a secret. After getting a proper working out in and a nice spar with Mr. Hajiwara, Katsuo was thoroughly exhausted. He planned to hit the gym with Midoriya and Kirishima whenever it was his turn to train Midoriya. Yes, he remembered. So with that put away, it was time to get moving. Katsuo and Kirishima ended up splitting off from Midoriya on their way home. Kirishima using Midoriya's borrowed notebook to ensure there were no more gaping holes in Katsuo's knowledge. They were already halfway through Book 1 of Midoriya's hero database when Katsuo's nose alerted him to the smell of smoke. Not the good, hot dog-smelling kind either, but bad smoke that he could only assume was coming from a fire. Without even thinking, he and Kirishima broke off into a sprint, rounding the corner only to find an apartment building burnt to a crisp. The fire was still going strong, and the heroes who came to put out were busy dealing with the group of villains who started the fire in the first place. Katsuo could tell they wanted to get to the fire and save the people trapped inside, but the villains outside were giving them way too much grief to do anything. They didn't even need to say anything. The two boys saw the look on each other's faces that said, "Fuck it." One of the pro heroes on the side was a normal hero, Manuel, who was attempting to fight the villains off while also dousing off the fire. It wasn't working through, so Katsuo and Kirishima jumped the police tape, evaded the police keeping the public at a safe distance, and jumped in a line of fire, getting absolutely soaked in water. Hey, what the hell are you kids doing? Manuel's yelling fell on deaf ears, however, as the duo quickly made their way inside. It was time for Katsuo to use his abilities to their max due to his increased intelligence. Katsuo was not only smarter, but he could control his mana more effectively. It allowed him to control the amount of mana spent when using a skill, as well control the mana as well. It took a crap ton of practice, but it would all be worth it if he could save people with it. Katsuo closed his eyes and focused, allowing his mana to pool in the center of his chest before sending it outwards. The invisible energy, completely undetectable to anyone else, spread throughout the entire building. Katsuo knew immediately when it found people. Living creatures felt different compared to objects, allowing Katsuo to ascertain the amount and location of people. He quickly informed Kirishima of the locations of every victim in the building, allowing him to split up to cover more ground. The people outside the building held their breaths in anticipation as they waited for the teenage boys, only for them to come out holding 4 or more people at a time. They thought it was over, but the boys knew otherwise. Hey, Manuel, I'm feeling kind of dry. Mind if I get a quick soak? Manuel looked at Katsuo like he was stupid before dousing him and Kirishima, despite Kirishima not getting to say anything yet. Damn brats, he muttered as he fought off the villains. Once again, the boys came out holding more and more people, laying them out on the ground by the ambulances, and rushing back inside, coming with dumber and dumber excuses each time they went back in. Hey man dash, Katsuo was stopped by Manuel blasting him with water a little harder than he needed to before running back inside as quick as lightning. It took a little while, but eventually there was nobody left. Okay, this is the last of the victims. Now let's get the hell out of here. The danger was never over around Katsuo, though. As he and Kirishima ran out of the building with one person in their arms each, the building's structural integrity began to break down rapidly, causing it to collapse. Katsuo, recognizing the sight of something falling down above him, yelled to one of the heroines nearby to catch his victim, with Kirishima doing the same with another hero. After getting them to safety, there was one more person that needed saving. Kirishima grabbed onto Katsuo's arm, and Katsuo grabbed onto Kirishima's arm. They looked at each other dumbfounded. But unfortunately for Kirishima, Katsuo was stronger. With one good throw, Kirishima was out of the danger zone, watching in horror as the building collapsed on top of Katsuo's bright smile. The people were horrified. The heroes who weren't fighting were horrified. Kirishima simply watched the rubble. And then a bloody fist came shooting out of the pile of brick and mortar like a rocket. Katsuo dragged himself out, standing on top of the pile with that same stupid smile he had almost died with. Quietly and to himself, Katsuo said, I must look so fucking cool right now. Of course, he could never let anyone else hear him say that. It was way too embarrassing. The audience began to cheer, excited that no one had gotten hurt, face flushed with embarrassment anyway. Katsuo simply got down from the pile, being instantly surrounded by pro heroes and medics alike. That was very stupid. Kid, what the heck were you thinking? The woman, who Katsuo recognized from Midoriya's notebook as the R-rated hero, Midnight, began scolding him viciously, along with Manuel and the other hero there. Kirishima simply reciprocated Katsuo's smile and waved before being surrounded by heroes and medics too, although not as much as Katsuo was. Eventually they settled down, and the heroes cleared out for the medics to do their work. Yeah, did you hear what the villains told us? Katsuo's attention was grabbed by a pair of pro heroes talking over by the collapsed building. The only reason he was able to hear them was due to his enhanced senses. Apparently, this was done by those bastards in the Black Company gang. You know, those crackpots with the crosshair-looking tattoo on their necks? Saw it myself on those guys we captured. Now that was interesting. After confirming he was okay, Katsuo was let go by the medics and forced to leave by the heroes, but not without getting a special goodbye from Midnight. And if I ever see you doing something stupid like this without a license again, I'll have to punish you. Midnight looked especially sadistic when she said, Punish? Katsuo awkwardly smiled at her before turning and running towards Kirishima, who had been waiting for him for a little while now. Honestly, Kirishima, I think we have a lot to be proud of for today. Kirishima agreed, and the two boys walked away from the crime scene with satisfied grin plastered on their faces. Still, though, it might be fun to look into that gang later. Katsuo was always up for a nice, fun game of cat and mouse. Katsuo regretted a lot. Fortunately, he has the power to change most of what he regrets. Spending 2 hours of his life trying to search up the Black Company gang on his computer and finding almost nothing? Yeah, he's never getting those 2 hours back. Katsuo leaned back in his chair and groaned, wishing he could find anything about the gang, but he couldn't. He even looked up their stupid-looking symbol, the crosshair-looking thing. Nothing. Well, guess it's time to hit the pavement. Katsuo was scheduled to go to the gym today with Kirishima and Midoriya, so he had until around 12:10 to do whatever he wanted. Katsuo figured the best way to find a gang-related crime was to search from a vantage point, which inevitably led to Katsuo climbing up the roof of a tall building and searching from there. Besides, if the Black Company tried to burn another building down, he would see the smoke fairly easily. What he wanted to do was search that building they had already burned, but it was way too collapsed for Katsuo to find anything alone. Besides, the police were all over it anyway, so he couldn't get close even if he wanted to. Anyway, it was time to focus up and lock in. Katsuo sharpened his eyes and ears and waited for even the slightest disturbance in the neighborhood. When he got bored 10 minutes later, he deemed it a good time to keep practicing with his mana. The going theory with mana was based on it being a type of energy. He wanted to solidify it somehow to create objects that would be cool, but everyone starts somewhere, so he decided to settle on strings for now. Unfortunately, Katsuo was so busy training his mana proficiency that he practically fell off the building when a loud noise combined with his enhanced hearing nearly scared him to death. Literally. Jumping into action quickly, Katsuo jumped from building to building, making his way to the sound of active combat somewhere nearby. Okay, everybody, stay back. The police were doing everything they could to ensure the safety of the bystanders who were caught up in this mess. A drug deal gone wrong between two groups spiraled out of control, leading to an all-out fight between villains. One of them was blasting fire, another shooting shrapnel, while the last two had gigantified and were now fighting above an overpass. Needless to say, the police were happy when pro heroes quickly arrived on the scene. Ed shot midnight, and a surprise to everyone there, Mirko, all right, who's ready to get their ass kicked first. Mirko yelled as she slammed into the pavement between the two smaller fighters. What the hell? The fire user panics, shooting out as much fire as possible. He must have had a limited supply, however, because he soon ran out of flames, only to get a roundhouse kick to the chin, sending him flying across the road. It may have been overkill. The rock shrapnel user was only a tiny bit smarter, opting to run away instead. Mirko instantly caught up to him, grabbing his leg as he jumped away and slamming him into the pavement. Now, for the giants. One had already been taken down by Midnight, who used her sleep pheromones to knock him out cold, causing him to shrink back to normal. Edshot had turned his arms to a sharp string and wrapped it around the legs of the other giant, whose gigantification had run out of time. Katsuo, who was watching from a few buildings away, was disappointed. Well, guess it's back to the building dash suddenly. A shout from the villain penetrated his ears, grabbing his attention instantly due to the panicked nature. Oh no, I'm not going out like this. The man slipped his hand into his pocket, pulling out a syringe with some sort of red liquid inside of it, and then he jammed it into his leg. Screaming in pain as the drug made its way throughout his body via bloodstream. The man's eyes rolled into the back of his head, his body growing larger and larger. His screams got deeper and louder. His size had stopped when he was twice as large as he was before. He was easily the size of a 15-story tall building, and a threat to everyone nearby. However, something went horribly wrong. His body was unable to take the stress of his out-of-control quirk, his heart failing to keep up. The man, whose heart had given up and stopped beating, began to fall right on top of the overpass. Mirko, who had already jumped into the air to combat the giant, looked down in horror as screams of fear and despair rang out from the group of civilians hiding underneath. The heroes were too far away. The concrete and support beams were already on their way down to crush the innocent people. Damn it, I can't save them. However, her eyes caught something. A boy with striking purple eyes moved as fast as lightning under the overpass, catching the falling debris. Run! Get out of here! He yelled through gritted teeth. The people moved quickly in their own right, scrambling to get out of the way of the falling debris. Mirko watched as this 13-year-old boy managed to hold up not only the weight of the overpass, but also the 20-story tall giant that had fallen on top of it. And then, in a feat of pure strength, Katsuo infused his fist with as much mana as he could manage and punched the debris, sending it only a few feet upward, just enough for Katsuo to jump backwards out from under the overpass. He rolled across the road towards a police barricade, accumulating scrapes and bruises. But nothing too bad. Holy shit, good looks, kid. However, a scene much like the one from a few days ago played out. Medics and policemen ran over to the idiot that risked his life to save random people, berating and bandaging him up at the same time. Then it was the hero's turn. That was awesome, kid. Mirko sprinted over to Katsuo, who only noticed her when she was right in his face. She was much too excited to notice the look of recognition the boy had in his eyes. It's her. She's a lot younger than she was at that time, but she's easily recognizable. Where other people would see the rabbit hero, Katsuo saw the flash of white that had saved him from the Nomu and thanked him for saving the girl. He saw the last person he talked to before punching his ticket. He felt his heart tighten. His face became warm for some reason. He quickly snapped out of it, though, as a monster approached. Hey, kid, what did I tell you about getting into stupid situations? Katsuo looked up in terror as Midnight stood above him, her arms crossed under an unapproving gaze. Katsuo was sweating now. You told me not to. Midnight smiled sadistically, licking her lips. Exactly. Now it's time for your punishment. Mirko watched in confusion as the R-rated hero, Midnight, dragged Katsuo off to the side, whispering in his ear while handing him a note. Come to my house in 2 days. I have some work I need you to do. Katsuo placed his hand over his beating heart inside. He was about to leave when a familiar rabbit hopped over to him. Hey, kid, don't worry about what the pervert has to say. I think you were really awesome today. Mirko threw a thumbs up at Katsuo with her signature grin before hopping away again, probably to find more villains to fight. His blush was back, his heart beating even more wildly. Later, when he met up with his friends outside the gym, they worried about the dazed expression on his face. I think rabbits are my favorite animal now. This time, the 3 boys went to a nearby restaurant after their workout. Midoriya's training was going splendidly, making great strides strength-wise, so they all decided it was time for a nice reward. Besides, it was a perfect time to start teaching Katsuo about the information in Midoriya's second hero notebook. It was just about random heroes, the occasional big name coming up here and there, but nothing much. They ordered milkshakes and fries, ate up, and then split off to go home. This time, Kirishima and Katsuo were able to get home without any problems. Of course, that didn't mean the day was over yet. Katsuo went home and took a nap. When the sun had finally set on the rest of the city, it was time for investigative work. Katsuo went back to the overpass, which was now covered in police tape to keep people away. His attention, however, was set on a nearby alleyway that was covered in the same black and yellow that the overpass was. Must have been where the deal went down. Confirming the zero presence of police in the area, Katsuo snuck into the alleyway to do his thing. The police had already gone through and taken most of what was important, but you could never be too careful when investigating a crime scene like this. Humans are human, and they make mistakes frequently. That meant Katsuo had the chance of finding something good. There were markers all over the alleyway, pointing out burns on the ground and walls, pieces of rock that had been wedged into the area, etc. However, something caught Katsuo's keen eye. The street light just outside the alleyway caused something to glimmer under the dumpster, prompting Katsuo to get on his hands and knees to grab it. It was a phone, darkly colored, meaning it would be easily missed by any police officers searching around. Katsuo only noticed a small glint of light bouncing off of it due to his enhanced perception. It's fairly old. Looks like a model from around 10 years ago. Someone must have been stuck in the past. I guess it slid out of their pocket somehow in the middle of confusion when the deal went sideways. Its design was based on a flip phone from around a century ago, back when portable phones were still relatively new. Flipping it open, which Katsuo actually found to be quite fun, he came across a lock which required a passcode. Damn it. Thinking he might as well try just in case, Katsuo typed in 1234. It didn't work. I'll have to see if I can run a program to crack it. Slipping the phone into his pocket and scouring the rest of the alleyway, Katsuo deemed the place barren of any more evidence and decided not to push his luck any further by staying longer than he needed to. He expertly climbed to the top of the building and quickly made his way home. After sneaking back into his bedroom via the window, Katsuo got to work quickly. He plugged the phone into his computer and began running a program that would try every possible combination of numbers. It was also extremely fast, so Katsuo estimated it would only take around an hour to get the right numbers. In the meantime, Katsuo pulled out a few more books from the library. It had been a while since he studied, but he leveled up practically exponentially due to the dungeon break, allowing him to store even more information inside his ever-growing collection of math and science. And as an upside, he hadn't been attacked by a giant on his way back home from the library this time. Katsuo was just wrapping up the last book when a chime from the computer grabbed his attention, signaling the phone had been unlocked. Katsuo memorized the password on the computer screen before disconnecting the phone and beginning his search. I know this is technically vigilantism, but I'm having way too much fun to stop now. Dismissing the fact that he was committing a crime right now, Katsuo began poking around. The IDs in the phone were mostly mundane, things like mom and dad. But at the bottom of the list was a group chat seemingly between the owner of the phone and a few other members. And wouldn't you know, the recent conversation was just what he needed. Hey, Daichi, I may have forgotten where we were supposed to meet up tonight. Mind flow me the address real quick? Smiley face. Killua. Damn it, Jinbei, what did we say already? Memorize the damn locations. Daichi, chill out Killua. You can scream at him in person. And for you, Jinbei, meet us at the docks at 4:25 a.m. Look for the red building with the billboard on top. The building is directly behind that one. I'll personally be waiting to beat your ass after you finish that deal. And remember, burn the phone. We don't need the cops finding it. Don't worry, boss man. I'll remember to burn my phone. See you at the docks. Killua, dumbass. Yeah, I have to agree with Killua. This guy is a dumbass. 4:25 was still way off. He had around 3 hours before the meeting took place. So for now, it was back to studying. I know it's easier now and everything, but I still hate doing this shit. The docks. It was now 4:20. Katsuo was standing on top of a building across the street from the docks, wearing his usual black jacket with a pair of black bootcut jeans. Katsuo's wardrobe was rather limited, while he had his hood up to cover his face. Katsuo had also made sure to wear a plastic mask. There was no design, just 2 holes where the eyes were, and 2 holes where his nose was to ensure proper breathing. Katsuo couldn't see himself right now, but he was sure he looked awesome. Probably. Hopefully. As the clock ticked down, Katsuo hopped down from the building and jumped to the other side of the street, sticking to the shadows as he moved through the yard. He spotted the red building, as well as a few suspicious men walking around. They weren't dressed in guard uniforms, meaning they were most likely a part of the Black Company. Katsuo stealthily dropped behind one of them and knocked him out with a small blow to the back of the head before dragging him into a dark corner. By the time the other guard realized his partner was missing, it was too late. Katsuo was on him in a millisecond, soon dragging a second body over to the first one, depositing both in a dumpster. Sleep tight until the cops come. Katsuo continued forward, taking out any guards in his way as he grew closer to the meeting place. He even discovered where the real guards were. After checking their vitals and ensuring their health, he kept moving. Gonna have to start studying medical books as well. Could prove useful. Now that the guards were safely secured near the exit, it was time to infiltrate. After sneaking around the building once, Katsuo deemed that climbing to the roof would be his best option. He located the drain pipe for the rain gutters and made his ascent up the side of the building. Now he was watching a gang meet up through the skylight. There were 9 people present, each one looking nearly identical. They were all wearing business suits, except the parts that would normally be white were now as black as the rest of the outfit. They wore black hats, black bandanas, and black sunglasses to hide their identities as well. Okay, looks like everybody's here. Let's get started. The men got closer to the middle of the room and gathered around a man sitting on a stack of wooden crates. I'm sure you all saw that dumbass Jinbei get himself caught earlier today. It was all over the news. Even worse, now the world knows about Trigger. Trigger? Katsuo had never heard before, but a little bit of common sense in analyzing the name led him to believe Trigger was what that man, Jinbei, had injected himself with to supercharge his quirk. It'll be bad if we get caught distributing Trigger, so we'll lay low for a little while. That'll make the buyers antsy to get more as well, so it's a win-win situation for... Hey, Top Claw, what the hell are you doing over there? Katsuo's attention was brought over to a man with an animal quirk. His body was similar to that of a lion, despite him standing upright on 2 legs. His lion head was now sniffing the air aggressively before growling. "We have an intruder!" Top Claw's head jerked upwards and looked Katsuo dead in the eyes before he jumped up to the roof. His claws latched onto the metal, his hands smashing through the glass and pulling Katsuo into the building. UMPF. Katsuo landed hard, the wind getting knocked out of him as the men approached him. Damn, I got careless. Heh, look what the cat dragon, literally. Bet you weren't expecting us to have a hound dog, right? The men chuckled, happy to laugh at Katsuo's expense as he got up. Then he stopped faking. Nah, I was just having too much fun. He looked at the leader with a cocky grin on his face, his eyes screaming danger to anyone who saw them. The leader backed up slowly, ordering his men to fight, and hoping nobody would realize just how scared he was. Katsuo ducked under a lobster claw and kneed the same man in the chin before using a kick to spin around and hit another guy in the jaw. 1 and 2. He jumped up and kicked his legs to the side, hitting another 2 in the nose. 3 and 4. Then he uppercut another guy so hard he flew into the air. Katsuo jumped up, grabbed the man's ankle, and slammed him into the ground before turning around and throwing the man at 2 more people. 5, 6, and 7. The leader was scared out of his mind now. He turned around and made a break for the door, tripping on himself and falling to the ground. He scrambled to get up, but his frantic movements simply lacked any thought behind them, disabling his ability to stand back up. He turned back around only to see Katsuo. He couldn't see it because of the mask, but the man could only imagine the grin Katsuo had on his face before he knocked the man out. You know, I didn't forget about you. Top Claw dropped from the ceiling, his large body cracking the floor and slightly shaking the ground beneath Katsuo's feet. Why didn't you save your friends? Seems like they needed your help. Top Claw growled again. I was fairly normal as a child, but as I grew up, my quirk made me bloodlust and itching for a fight. I hated that side of me, and thus attempted to hold in my animal urges. But when I accidentally killed a man out of self-defense, I realized just how fun it was to fight. So I honed my body and sharpened my mind, and became the apex predator. The only reason I joined the Black Company was to find stronger opponents to fight, so get over here and fight me. The fight was over in less than 2 seconds. A simple punch to the gut was all it took for the beast to go down. He hadn't even seen Katsuo before he fell to the ground. There are many people still stronger than me. That means you were nowhere near the top of the food chain, you damn cat. Seeing that everyone was now unconscious, Katsuo called the police and began a quick investigation before they arrived. He found a briefcase full of more red vials. Must be Trigger. Good thing I knocked these guys out quickly, or else they could have been a lot tougher to deal with. But how am I going to find out where this stuff is coming from? Suddenly, a slightly sadistic idea came to his mind. He dragged the leader up to the roof of the building and woke him up. Huh? Wah! H. The leader began to spasm and shake his arms out of fear once he realized he was hanging upside down. A simple slip of the hand was all it took to send him to his death. The man looked at who was holding him up, only to see Katsuo. Once again, he imagined a sadistic grin under his mask. "Here's what's going to happen, sir. You're going to tell me where you got this ugly red shit from, and I won't drop you." The man gathered his senses back and tried to bluff his way out. He was met with a 5-foot drop to ground before bouncing back up. Katsuo had attached a rope to the man. Okay, I'll tell you, you crazy bastard. I don't know who makes this stuff or where they are, but I know whoever they are works for the Black Company, okay? But that's all I know, I swear." Katsuo could tell the man wasn't lying. It was clear as day. "Thanks, buddy. Mind holding this for me?" Katsuo pulled the man up, slapped a sticky note on his chest, and knocked him out again before dropping him, letting him hang by his ankle from the rooftop. "That note will explain things to the police once they get here. And speak of the devil, the police arrived right after the interrogation, but Katsuo was able to stealthily slip out of there and escape without anyone noticing him. Seems the well has dried up for now. I probably won't find anything if the Black Company has been ordered to lay low. Guess I'll just keep my ear to the ground in case anything new happens." And with that, Katsuo went home, not knowing just how dangerous the Black Company was, and how they would affect his life from then on.